David, are we good to go to start tonight's meeting of? Hello, everybody. Thanks. I'd like to start the Parks, Open Space and Trails Commission meeting scheduled for September 16th, 2024. It's at 6 p.m. It's a little after 6, actually. So, David, can we start the meeting off with a roll?
Yes, Chair Hornbrook,
Here.
Commissioner McInerney,
Here.
Commissioner Burr,
Here.
Commissioner Judge,
Here.
and Commissioner Moon will not be here this evening.
Great. Thank you, David. Let's see. Our first item is, are there any oral communications from the group or anybody on the phone that would like to talk about something that's not on the agenda? That would be like, you'd like to talk about the really cool asteroid that's circling the Earth or anything, but anything that's not on tonight's agenda.
I'd like to know if anybody's gone through Bel Air recently and seen the new home being built.
Oh, well, no.
Can we get up there?
Yeah, that's part of the deal. You get 3 minutes to say whatever. That's the public process.
3 minutes.
Hi, and you get, and so also just kind of rule of order, it would be like, you don't have to say your name if you don't want to. It would be great if you said that you lived in Tiburon and what neighborhood you're from. That would be great. And then any other kind of context for things like maybe like, I've lived here for 3 years and it's great, or I've lived here for 50 years and it's awesome, whatever it may be. But I think anything to help the context with us to hear your comments. This will extend to the other comments based on the Parks and Open Space plan. But I think that's just that context helps everybody go like, okay, I get it. So, sir.
Sure. My name is Brian Zalian and I grew up in Bel Air, and so I've been there for about 65 years now, on and off. I've watched it change over time, and I've also watched how it is now radically changing with the new architectural types. The nightly walks I walk around the neighborhood and look at them. If you have not seen them, for me personally, it feels very difficult to walk by and not think that somebody doesn't have an idea of the soul of the, to put that out there. I still love the neighborhood, and I hope down the road people take that into account, that there are people looking at the entirety of the neighborhood as it has been, as it will be, and how it will develop with an idea toward taste and aesthetics. That's what I'd like to put out there tonight. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much. Is there anybody else in chambers that would like to speak about something that's not on tonight's agenda? I don't see anybody. David, is everybody online?
Yes, we have one hand raised.
Terrific. You could state your name and you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, commissioners. This is Parker Pringle. You guys probably read in the ARC they've got that Greenwood Beach restoration project funding going, which is great news. It's going to be fantastic. There's one downside, wasn't reported in the ARC. They're going to be mining the delta offshore of the beach for sand and gravel, and that happens to be a pretty important, underused but important public access amenity, particularly for kayak and stand-up paddleboard, sailboat launching, kids playing, etc. And the BCDC is looking at that and keeping an eye on it on the public's behalf, but this falls right in your wheelhouse, and I want to draw your attention to that. You can look at late mail number 16 for the post the Master Parks plan. I attached the BCDC's letter to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pringle. Yes, and we received your note, and specifically it's something on the beach restoration project. David, is there anything else? Is this something that's not on the agenda? Okay, come on down.
My statement for the other part of the.
No, this is
Great.
this is.
Thank you.
You get
Oh.
6 minutes tonight.
Great, thank you. I'd just like to say that I think it's probably a good idea for,
I just need to know if you live in Tiburon.
I'm sorry, I'm Edward McCauley. I live at Clare Way. And I've lived there probably 20 years roughly.
Thank you.
I think it would be a good idea for the town council to let people know, to disclose specifically what the operation of the QR code is for each QR code that they present to people. Because that can take data from people's devices, and it's important to let them know exactly what the QR code does, what its operation is, and if there's any privacy issue.
All right, thank you. Anything else, David?
I see none.
Okay, great. Thanks. So we'll close this item. Public comment. David, do you have any staff reports?
Yeah, for staff briefings, as residents are aware, we did start the Richardson Bay Sanitary District decommissioning of the ponds. That work's been going on for about a week. If you haven't been there, you'll notice just how amazing it looks right now. I mean, it's just almost double the size of what it used to look like. This contractor it's the first time they've worked here in Tiburon, and they impressed us a lot. In 1 week, they have done a lot of work. The contract has them working until the end of November, but it looks like they'll be done much sooner. So if you're out there this weekend, just stop on by and take a look at all the work they've done out there so far. And again, this process is part of the decommissioning of the ponds. It's state mandated. So once this is done, we will have a nice flat area and hydro seeded with grass until the residents of this town decide what they want to do out there in the future.
Great. Thanks, David. I think we'll move on to our one action item, which is the minutes. Right. So this is for the minutes from our meeting on September 16th.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the September 16th meeting.
I'll second that. Roll.
I'll take roll. Chair Hornbrook,
Yes.
Commissioner McInerney,
Yes.
Commissioner Judge,
Yes.
Commissioner Burr.
Yes. Thanks, David. I think we go into the next action item, which
Yeah.
is the
Parks Master Plan.
Parks Master.
So yeah, so our only action item this evening is a presentation from WRT on the final draft of the Park and Recreation Master Plan. As you're aware, we started this work back in, I believe, April of 2023. So a little over a year and a half of a lot of work, a lot of data collection, a lot of meetings, post-commission meetings, town council a few times. And we are here basically nearing the end for this plan. It is put together wonderfully, in my opinion. Of course, there are different opinions of what may need to change or what may need to be added, of course, of a plan of this size that is expected. So this evening we have Peter Lynch and Olivia Grinsbach. I did it right the first time. And they'll be presenting the plan to the post commission and to the public. And after they present the plan, the post commission will have they'll ask some questions. They'll open it up to public comment. After that, it'll go back to discussion with them, and then they will make a recommendation of this plan to town council. This plan will go to town council. Tentatively, it's set for November 20th of this year. So again, you do have another month to review it. If you catch something or want any additional changes made to it, you can come to town council at that point. But so that you're aware, the same exact plan that you see today will be the same plan that is going to town council. There'll be no changes made to the physical plan, except any added recommendations from post, which will be bulleted in a staff report. So everything will be transparent and easy to understand. No surprise changes between now and November 20th. And with that said, I'll
Sure.
hand it over to Peter.
If I may,
Oh,
David,
I'm
just so
sorry.
fast. No, it's okay. So just for everybody who's online and also here in the chamber, so kind of the run of show is that we're still looking at 30, 40, 45 minutes at the most, Peter? So like, so 30-minute presentation to go through his material, then we'll max ourselves with any questions of the material that he goes through for questions. And then it'll be open for comments from the public, and we will go on as long as we need to. Those will be 3-minute public comments. You guys are our peers, right? We're all residents of the town of Tiburon. So I just ask your kindness. So when you do hit the 3 minutes, I'm not trying to be a grouch to cut you off. It's just there might be a lot of people who want to make some comments. So, and again, we're all peers on this. When you think about this and we go through the presentation and the questions and pieces that you maybe have thought about talking about, really actionable changes would be really beneficial for making this a better plan. I recognize that there's other comments that people have. I've read all of those 19 comments that people sent in already. So I understand that perspective, but really actionable pieces is super helpful. We will also take those comments that people have written in, and those we'll review those and internalize, and the staff will internalize those. And that will be presented as part of the public record of what needs to be finalized going forward. And then after your public comment is done, then we will have a discussion as chair people, and then, or not chair, pardon, as a commission. And then at that point, we're going to limit our discussion probably to at the most 30 minutes, and then we're going to vote and say like, yes, this is the plan, or this is the plan with these changes. So that's kind of the run of show. Just want to let you guys know that, so everybody's kind of like planning as you plan your evenings. So and I also wanted to give Peter and David a chance to get everything teed up. So you guys good? Oh, okay. Now it's really dark. So Peter with WRT, take it over. And I really appreciate you guys getting the details of the plan provided on Tuesday night or whenever that was sent over. So thank you very much. It's too dark, but there we go.
Nice. Well, thank you, Commission and public, for staying engaged and involved. It's been a really good process. I think we've really enjoyed working and getting to know Tiburon, and getting to know the parks and open spaces and the recreational offerings of the ranch and the community. So just a little bit of gratitude, and also happy to be where we are. To have, I think, hopefully pretty well integrated a lot of different points of view, a lot of different priorities and desires into something that I think is cohesive and makes sense, and meets the initial understanding and intention for this project, which was to have an overall framework guided by community engagement and guided by data and analysis that can that the town decision makers can use, and that the public can have faith in, to guide decision making around parks and recreation, so that we don't have a situation where every single decision seems like a one-off, but instead seems like is part of a larger intentional movement toward a goal. So as David said, or as Chuck said, we've been working at this since April of 2023, about a year and a half. Next slide. And today we will be just walking through the plan at a kind of high level so that everyone can see how it is structured. And we'll get within each chapter into some of the details, some of the key points, but not everything. The plan is available now, and many of you may have had a chance to look through it, which is exciting. It's on the website, tiburonparks.com. If any of you listening out there haven't downloaded it or taken a look, you can do that now, and have that available to you as we walk through it. So we will walk through the plan and then have a good discussion as Chuck laid out. Little hard to see this, but I'm not going to expect you to read this fine print. In a sense, this planning process can be understood to have taken place in 3 sort of large phases. First, collecting and understanding the information, the background that we need to understand to make a good plan. translating that into goals and recommendations and actions. Those are sort of three scales of recommendation from the highest level and most broad to the most specific, and then pulling all of that together into a document. And that's portrayed in the top part of this schedule graphic, whereas on the bottom, the red is a more detailed accounting of our community engagement and our work with this body and with town council over the course of the last year and a half. And you can see we are here very near the end of this process, we hope, if we you know are on the right track to be getting to a final Parks Master Plan next month. So here it is, at the cover. Next slide. And we have 6 chapters and appendices. So we'll walk through each of these chapters, but we start with an executive summary, which hopefully gives the key information. So if you don't want to read any further, just that would be enough. The second chapter is called Place, Parks, and Programs, and it provides a summary of what this community is today from the perspective of Parks and Recreation. The third chapter is called Community Vision and Priorities. And in this chapter, we summarize the engagement process of this effort and what we learned, what we heard from the community. And then this chapter includes our vision and recommendations, which are coming out of that community engagement process, as well as informed by our understanding of the parks and programs that you can see in chapter 2. And that chapter 3 then ends with recreation priorities and provides a way for decision makers to understand how to prioritize future changes to the park system. Chapter 4 gets into the park system spaces and places themselves. So whereas chapter 3 is about engagement and recreation programming and recreation priorities, chapter 4 is about the places and how we think about what kind of change is appropriate in what location. Chapter 5 then gets into costs, rough order of magnitude costs for capital improvements, but also for maintenance and operations. And then thinking about ways to fund the kinds of improvements we're talking about. And chapter 6 tries to pull that all together into a decision-making framework. Next slide. So let's keep going, rolling through, and we'll start with the executive summary. So again, we'll just introduce some of the key points, but the chapter has more in it, and we can, in the Q&A or in the discussion, get into more detail to the extent people are interested. But this chapter lays out some of the key recommendations of the plan. I'm just going to kind of walk through them bullet by bullet here. So this plan is recommending that we continue to provide satisfying and tranquil experiences of the natural setting, but at the same time, also provide more recreational opportunities for the whole community, for this multi-generational community. And make sure to do that in a way that is sensitive to the character of each site. We recognize the need to improve the condition of the small neighborhood parks. These are often just little things, but that can go a long way where those neighborhoods are concerned. And at the same time, we want to have our eyes on bigger opportunities and explore the feasibility of providing an outdoor pool or more indoor recreation space, because those things are things that came out of this process as high priorities for the community. The plan recommends creating better visibility and identity for the parks. We heard and we saw a sort of a little bit of a lack of signage, identity signage, wayfinding signage, online information, the kind of things that can make people really understand and feel like their park system is legible. We recommend, if you go back up, the importance of partnerships. Tiburon, the town of Tiburon already is in a fundamental partnership with the ranch to provide recreational programming, and that's a joint venture with Belvedere. We have other partners too, the school district and neighboring communities, potentially the Strawberry Recreation District. We're a small town, but we can leverage recreation opportunities that are provided by others. The plan recommends enhancements to the old rail trail, which is also, as many of us know, the San Francisco Bay Trail, and a really, really important regional recreational amenity. But the key is to make sure that that facility in Tiburon is functioning really well for all users and feels safe and gives a positive experience. we recommend a more detailed planning process for the Richardson Bay Lineal Park. And that was mentioned in the intro comments, the desire to purchase, well, the success in purchasing a portion of the Richardson Bay Sanitation District site, and the progress on that, but wanting to integrate that into the rest of the park in a way that is holistic and that thinks about that site as a whole site. We are recommending initiating some programming and sort of public space enhancements downtown, which have the opportunity to contribute to overall downtown vitality and community building. And then finally, we're recommending a network of open space trails. There are already open space trails, but making it a more cohesive system to give this community greater access to the great outdoors. So that's sort of let's say greatest hits right there. The plan also then wants to, it was really important to the town council for this plan to function in a sort of flexible way as a decision-making framework. So not just to make specific recommendations, but to describe why we're making those recommendations, what underlies those recommendations, so that on a case-by-case basis, we can actually return to more of a decision-making framework and not just say, well, is this idea specifically in the master plan? Because over 10 or 15 or 20 years, a lot of other ideas will come up. So we'll need, the master plan should function as a way to evaluate the merit of those ideas in light of the community priorities that came to light through this planning process. So that decision-making framework has these 4 components, and we've structured the plan to introduce those components one by one. The first is guiding principles. That's the why. Why are we doing this? Why would we make a change to the parks and recreation system? Then we get to the what, which is the recreation priorities. What kind of recreation experiences do we need to provide more of? What are the community priorities in that area? Then there's the where, which is the site considerations. Where in this community are those recreation priorities appropriate, and how can we make sure to change sites in a way that is appropriate to those sites themselves? And then the how is, how much is that going to cost? And is there a funding source? Is there a natural funding source that links up with that recommendation? Next. Okay, so that's sort of, that's the plan in a nutshell. That's the executive summary. Now we can unpack those things a little bit more as we go chapter by chapter. So chapter 2, place, parks, and programs. First starts with a summary of the demographics of Tiburon. We talk about, we recognize that there is projected very slow population growth. I think something like 215 people or something over the course of the next 15 years. But on the other hand, the general plan, which was adopted last year, would actually enable 821 units, which could accommodate a larger population growth if all those units were built. So we recognize there's some difference between projections that are based on past trends and what's actually possible. And so this master plan may need to be accommodating a greater amount of growth than we're accustomed to, and perhaps at a greater range of family and household types. Then we look at the park system, the physical place, and we see that Tiburon has 14 parks, 13 open spaces, 3 playgrounds, 3 sports courts and fields, 30 miles or so of off-street walking, biking, and hiking trails. And I can't read the bottom because I see some heads, but we've got some some metrics that describe the park system. And then the graphic here on the right is showing, and I think this is a really important point, Tiburon has really a wealth of parks and open spaces, but most of that is what is in the category of what we're calling open space. And there's a distinction we're making here between parks, which are more developed spaces for recreation, and open space, which is really focused on the natural environment. It also has and enables and accommodates public access on trails, but it's really not intended to have other kinds of recreational improvements. So we really have very limited space for the kinds of more developed improvements that may be important to providing a full-fledged recreational experience in Tiburon. Then we're also looking at the trails, and it's interesting to see we've got this really great trail, old rail trail that is, as we were driving in today, it just was absolutely at its best, as you can imagine, people out there enjoying it. And then 26 miles of unpaved trails, mostly up in the hills, just creating all that experience. Here you can see that parks and open space system mapped. It's a little hard to read, I recognize, for people in the room, but I would just point out the actual developed parks. You can see those in the darker shade of green, and they're really concentrated down along Richardson Bay. The tan color is the town of Tiburon open spaces, and you can see how there are open space properties spaced out along the Tiburon Ridge, interspersed with open spaces that are managed by Marin County, including now the Martha property, which was purchased. That purchase was completed just last month, I think. 110 new acres of public open space managed and owned and operated by Marin County. And then also this map is showing some of the recreational amenities, both in and outside of Tiburon, the schools and the Strawberry Recreation District, which are really just part of the picture in our system. Next slide is the same map, but this one is focused on the trails. This one is adding the trails. And you can see here, there's really two, I think, main components of the trail system. The first is the old rail trail and the San Francisco Bay Trail. And we aren't actually showing the entire San Francisco Bay Trail here because a lot of it is on street. We're just showing the off-street segment, which is the old rail trail right there along Richardson Bay. And then you can also see segments of the Tiburon Ridge Trail. And I think that trail probably has other names and other identities at different segments, but you can see that there's almost, there's getting close to an ability to walk on a trail along that ridgetop for a long distance. There are also gaps. And so we're interested in seeing where those gaps can be filled, and also how that trail spine can be better linked with the old rail trail and the San Francisco Bay Trail, and better access which exists along the bay. Chapter 3 is our chapter which is focused on what we heard from the community. We held a number of events throughout this process, really fun stuff. What you can see here in this picture was in the summer of 2023, the Classic Car Show. We were also out at Friday Night on Main. We had community workshops right here in this room, as well as online. And we had many meetings with this commission, with a subcommittee of this commission, with town council, and with stakeholders in small groups. We also have a website. I hope that some of you have gotten to use it over the course of the planning period, and we've gotten a lot of really good constructive feedback and comments on the website. It's just a sort of a summary of the themes of what we've heard through that engagement. We've heard the issue of safety and comfort around speeds, particularly of e-bikes on the old rail trail, around the amenities that are sometimes not in the best condition, and some concerns around safety there. The desire for more comfort amenities in parks, more benches and seating and shade. We heard about access. We heard about the need for more signage, more information, better parking, perhaps more restrooms, and a sense that the amenities, in particularly the play areas, should be more inclusive. We heard about the need for a better connected system of open spaces and trails and bikes and pedestrian facilities. Think about the Safe Routes to Schools initiative that you might have heard of. There's just a lot of reasons, both recreationally, but also in terms of travel, actually being able to use trails to get around. There's just a very cool overlap there between transportation and recreation. We heard definitely about a desire for more access to the water. Here we are in Tiburon, a peninsula jutting out into San Francisco Bay, and yet access to the water is not easy. There was also a desire for more swimming, for public opportunities for swimming. Natural character and environment was a theme. Definitely something that is treasured in this community about the open space system is its sense of place and the natural beauty that it provides. We heard a lot of specific feedback about different types of recreation amenities, in particular, and some of those in particular were playgrounds, different types of sort of special amenities like sand volleyball or bike parks or skate parks. And also at the same time, an interest in just better supported passive recreation opportunities. We heard about dog parks as well. And then finally, we heard about the need or the desire for more community events. People sometimes remembered that there had been more events in the past, or they loved the events that are happening now and they just wanted more of that. So out of all of that feedback, we tried to distill it, and we have distilled it into these 5 guiding principles. Each one of these is actually supported by some more detailed recommendations, and you can see those in the plan. But the high level guiding principles here, 1 around park experience, 2 is about recreation amenities and park improvements, 3 is around recreational programming, 4 is about access and safety, and then the 5th is around environment and sustainability. Yeah. Your fingers are tired. Yeah. Okay. Oh, nice. Okay. Okay. So from that, we, in addition to being able, in addition to defining guiding principles, the feedback we got from the community was also able to give us a pretty detailed, way to prioritize specific recreation amenities. And so that's both coming from a statistically valid survey that was mailed to every household in Tiburon, and from which we got a very, very strong response rate, which gives us a pretty high confidence in the response. But we also wanted to make sure that what we heard from the community and engagement filtered in. So we have those 2 sources that we were drawing from and trying to balance. And based on those sources, the highest recreation amenity priorities that we heard were for playgrounds, a kayak or a stand-up paddle launch, multi-use paved and unpaved trails, a swimming pool, outdoor pickleball courts, open space and conservation areas, outdoor tennis courts, a community center, and picnic areas and shelters. There are a lot more, and some people are passionate about sand volleyball. Some people are passionate about a bike park. These are also really great ideas. They just weren't in the grand scheme of things at the very top of the list. That doesn't mean that there can't be good mechanisms to provide those, but it's important to understand priorities at the community-wide scale. Chapter 4 looks at the quality of specific places and how to make recommendations for specific sites. So we looked at, we did a sort of a geographic analysis of slope and vegetation, sensitivity to noise, access, topography, those kind of things that are really important to determine what kinds of activity should really belongs in what parts of the park system. And then we came up with these 6 park character areas, we're calling them R1 through R5, and then E, which is the ecological. These are kind of like zoning. It's sort of like zoning is the same concept. It's like what kinds of park amenities belong in which zone. So we have these in kind of a scale from the most active to the most sensitive and passive. We've also made recommendations for
these colors are not designated here?
yes, they are. The map is a little hard to read at that scale, but you can see that each zone is associated with a color. I mean, I know what it is. What is the designation? Thank you. I can't read that. Yeah, I know. The materials are, it's sometimes it's hard to get it really legible, and we try as well as we can. So thank you for, yeah, okay. So then we have recommendations for specific sites. So we have Richardson Bay Lineal Park. Really, this is the crown jewel of the park system. It is where most of our developed parkland is. This includes Blackie's Pasture, McKegney Green, and the south of the Knoll area, as well as the Old Rail Trail in that portion of that segment of the Old Rail Trail. So we are recommending through this planning process that with Blackie's Pasture, over time, there is a need and an opportunity to incorporate adaptation to sea level rise, and that's already happening. So we're just kind of documenting that. But through the Greenwood Beach project. There's a nature-based adaptation that's a really exciting opportunity to adapt to the changing environment and do so in a way that maintains the natural character of the place. There's also an opportunity to, I think, create more natural habitat value and other kind of qualities in that space. Because this is the area that has the part of the Tiburon Park system, arguably, that has the best access. This is also an area that that we came to see as having an opportunity for new ways of engaging in the park system, new amenities, maybe in a limited way, but the kind of amenities that would be attractive to multi-generational, a broad swath of Tiburon residents. We really saw it as a community, broader community-focused recreational space. McKegney Green is already the place where we have our sports fields. It is directly adjacent to the sanitation pond site. So when we're saying McKegney Green in this context, we're kind of including the sanitation ponds site as a new part of this part of the park where it is focused on active recreational uses. Then we have the south of the Knoll area as you continue to travel south. And this area is being recommended just to basically kind of keep its current character, but just reinvest in those neighborhood park amenities and that passive environment and that ability to appreciate and enjoy that tranquil open space. We also have recommendations for the Bay Trail, which travels through that Richardson Bay Lineal Park. And this is kind of an interesting opportunity. This is based on the observations, the important finding, I think, from this plan, that there's a concern around speeds and around the mixing of bikes and e-bikes and pedestrians and people of different ages and abilities on, pretty limited trail space. What you see in this diagram on the upper right is the San Francisco Bay Trail in what we're recommending as a potential alignment for the Bay Trail is to shift that Bay Trail to the bay side. Right now it follows the old rail trail, but we're recommending that it come through the south of the Knoll area and then follow that unimproved road that follows along the shoreline. That would be a better place for the through travel for the Bay Trail experience. Whereas the old rail trail in the park would have an opportunity to become a slower, calmer, more pedestrian-oriented area where people are coming in from the neighborhoods and filtering into the park. That's represented here in yellow. And so we're showing here in the plan just different aspects of how that change could take place in the park. Some best practices in trail design, some thoughts around how those trails might merge in a safe way for pedestrians and bikes. And we'll continue to work on this a little bit. And this, as well as all the recommendations for this site, really would benefit from a more detailed master plan for the whole site. Downtown and Tether Park, we also gave this some focus. The recommendations here are that for shoreline parks, such a special, place and kind of an open space anchor for downtown, could there be some kind of a sculptural play element or a public restroom that would support downtown vitality and park use? Fountain Plaza, great spot. Could the parking lot that is adjacent to Fountain Plaza become a flexible event space? And potentially that could take some of the pressure off of Main Street downtown and allow some of those community events to take place in Fountain Plaza and in those parking areas and maybe off of Main Street. Zielinski Park, great little site, right? I'm not a little disoriented, but maybe it's over there. Beautiful, beautiful park. And with that vantage point onto the marsh, that in combination with Library Plaza just has some opportunity for more programming. A little bit more community events could probably take place here. We looked at Tether Park as well. And right here on the right, we're showing a couple of concepts for Tether Park, recognizing that could become a gateway for the open space, for access to the open space trails in the hills, that we could have a real good, strong, visible connection between downtown Tiburon and the trails in the hills, but also to the Bay Trail. We're envisioning a path along Bay Street that could become a new link and part of a beautiful streetscape project that could also have recreational value. For Tether Park, we also see the opportunity for a small pocket park potentially if the tennis courts there were to be relocated, then that would open up opportunities potentially for a pocket park or for an outdoor pool. These aren't necessarily the right outcome, but we just want to recognize that Tether Park is one of the few sites in the community where we do have some options, and it's right downtown. So I think we want to enable some creative thinking about that site. We looked at the smaller parks and here just made sort of scalpel-like recommendations here for Bel Air Park, just to improve site drainage. We heard about ponding, make sure that the maintenance, that park is maintained as it should be, perhaps add a gravel or DG path, some benches, some signage, just make that park a little bit more visible and better maintained. For Belveron Mini Park, this is a park that a lot of people don't know exists. It's very hard to find. It just, you pass by it and faster than you know it, it's gone on Tiburon Boulevard, but it goes way back into this canyon. So there may be an opportunity to maybe create a little bike loop or learner path to make some improvements to the vegetation in that little canyon. Perhaps there's a playground opportunity. Cypress Hollow Park, really an important neighborhood asset, and just needs some TLC, some restoration, perhaps a clearly demarcated dog park. And if there are playgrounds constructed in other places, then that might take some of the pressure off the playground here. And open spaces and trails have spoken to this a bit already, but the need or the opportunity to create some trail connections on the Tiburon Ridge Trail and to perhaps think about the trail system as including on-street segments so that with good signage, perhaps some strategic pedestrian safety improvements, people could park along the old rail trail where there is some parking and have access up to the ridge, because the trailheads up in the neighborhoods, they don't have very much parking. There's a little bit of on-street parking here and there, but it's not where we'd really want a lot of people to come and drive and park. Chapter 5 looks at costs and funding, and we won't get into the details here and you can't even read them, but this is just to say that we provide rough order of magnitude estimates for capital improvement costs for each of the recreation amenities that we looked at in this planning process, including some big ticket items like a swimming pool, a community center, a gym, sports fields, or paved trails. Some of these were high community priorities, so it's important to understand that how much they would cost, and then to think about how much it would cost to operate them, and how much it takes to operate this system as it is today. That's what's shown on this table, and what that means in terms of maybe there's a gap, not a big gap, but there is somewhat of a gap between the current funding that goes to the parks and recreation operations and what's needed to maintain the system in a way that we expect, both in terms of budget and in terms of staff. And then we looked at what it would cost to build and operate a recreation center and an outdoor aquatics facility. And then identified potential funding strategies for parks and recreation. We looked at external funding sources and taxes and fees and partnerships and all kinds of different ways, that some of which Tiburon uses now and some of which maybe aren't in use, but are just parts of the picture of how parks and recreation are funded. Finally, chapter 6 is where we bring all of these features together. This is more the decision-making framework for, understanding the sort of matching community priorities with costs and funding sources and locations in a way that is versatile and flexible for decision makers over time. And this chapter also, in tabular form, defines all of the recommended improvements that I've just walked through in each site and characterizes them, whether it's in one of 3 sort of buckets or tiers. A being just small necessary improvements to keep that site in good condition. B, being more strategic changes that would add something new to that site without completely transforming it. And then C would be more transformational improvements. We will be receiving public comments. As we mentioned, it's online, it's up on the website. And it sounds like we've already gotten 19 comments, and maybe that number has grown in the past half an hour. And town council, we're hoping to get to town council on November 20th with, as David said, this same document, as well as a summary of recommendations from Post. And with that, I will hand it back to Chair Hornbrook. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Appreciate you. So what I want to do right now is just open it up to the rest of the commission for any questions you have on the material, not discussion, but just questions like. But do you have a general question? Yes?
I have a general question on, but thank you, by the way, great presentation. Thank you.
Sure.
Chair. Quick question, a couple small questions on funding strategies. Where would like state, federal, or county funding fall in? I'm guessing you would include that under partnerships, where you do mention 2 government entities, but just curious if that was contemplated and if that is where that would fit in.
I think we have yeah, great question. I think that might be captured in a category of grants. Often these state sources or federal sources are competitive grant-based sources, but there may be others that you're thinking of as well. If you give me a moment to look at the plan, I can orient myself to that and get a response. Yeah, I think it's captured as a grant opportunity.
Okay.
But maybe there could be another line there. Yep.
That's the only question I had right now. Go ahead.
If you don't mind, on this one topic, on the implementation feasibility on that specifically on the funding, what was your metric to use high, low, medium? I mean, it just seems, I just looked at your language and it seems, no offense, but a little arbitrary. And I think that was a lot of importance that at least people I heard from, like certain things like fundraising actually in this town is probably easier than raising taxes, frankly.
Right.
So
Yeah, I think, that it's a little subjective, but we had a dialogue with, I don't recall, but members of the town manager's office and other staff. And just sort of talk through what's worked here in the past, where is there opportunity, where is there maybe not so much opportunity. And over time, those things might change, like maybe, for example, interlocal agreements, great opportunity. We already have the ranch. And there's more opportunity to leverage that. Partnerships, foundational money. I mean, I think, we did our best to try to sort of connect all of these opportunities to this community and what the resources are here.
right, but basically my question and your answer is like, we got feedback from the town. This is what the sense that we got for high, medium, and low.
Yeah,
Where
correct.
as in that was your basis. That's the fact. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for this, Peter. This is an immense amount of work, and I think it's really great. A couple just detail questions. One, this draft suggests like one of the options for Tether Park, and again, just an option, not a proposal, not a recommendation. One of the future options for Tether Park is to move the tennis courts to different sites and replace with a pool. This is like in the pool feasibility study, where of all places in Tiburon could a pool ever go? I personally think I'll hold my comments till discussion. Question is, what, in your site studies, where else did you see as possible locations for tennis or pickleball courts?
Yeah, good question. It's limited. It's limited. So that is a challenge with the idea of relocating tennis courts. I would say potentially the sanitation pond site. I'm not sure if there are other good locations for tennis courts.
And then just one other detailed question is that really liked seeing the thoughtful recommendations around how to upgrade the mini parks. And one of the recommendations was you could add new playground structures to new areas to ease the sort of crowd and traffic and demand on like the Belveron mini park. So, or the Cypress Hollow mini park, whatever it was. Could you just walk us through where you saw, like of all the sites, where you saw possible siting locations for mini park, like for new playground structures, whether they be nature-based or traditional?
Great question. I think we felt some momentum as we went through this process for potentially maybe a nature-based or just a very special kind of playground at Blackie's Pasture, which could be located in an easily accessed location near the parking, could be a place that anyone from all over Tiburon would come. That was something that we heard people start to get inspired about and start to talk about tunnel tops and start to imagine, obviously not maybe at that scale and attracting people from all over the region, but could be something very special, which Tiburon isn't lacking in the playground category. There may be opportunities for just more simple neighborhood-based play structures at Belveron Mini Park, where there isn't one now, perhaps at Tether Park, if that were to be part of that site, or perhaps at Shoreline, if it could be sort of sculptural, if it could fit in with the vibe of that park. And there may be other ideas. I'd love to hear other ideas.
Could the Zielinski Park be one location?
Could be, yeah.
Thank you.
Any questions? You're done? Yeah.
That's all from me. Thank you.
I don't have any questions. I just love seeing a room full of people because when we started, we were having a hard time getting people interested and involved. And it's great to see everyone here. And thank you, Peter and WRT, for really turning something that was hard to grasp into something that's easy to follow. So thank you.
I have two more.
Yeah,
Go for it.
Yeah. So I one other question is on the recommendations, A, B, C. Is there a reason why, I mean, when I looked at those and I kind of keep thinking about them, it's like A's great, B, C, you never want to get. Is there a reason why we didn't use something like NST, which is N for necessary, S for strategic, and T transformational? I just think the ABC is you never get to the C's, and that's on page 128 of the slide deck. We can make those recommendations on ours, but is there a reason why just you chose ABC? No.
Hadn't thought of NST. I like that.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Burr.
Thank you. Found my other two questions. Do you have examples, and I don't recall this coming up in the last year and some change, of other communities, towns, cities that have implemented similar character area zones such as this?
Good question. This is we sort of did this for the first time here based on town council recommendation. There may be others. Yeah.
Hopefully that's
So,
a good and innovative thing.
Yeah,
Oh,
I think so. I think it was very I mean, it just arose organically through this process and felt right.
And then what does happen if in the future, things have shifted and we do need to either create an exemption within one of these zones, or maybe there's an area which for some reason the zoning would have to change. So would that have to go back through a town council process? How locked in to the plan will we be, assuming it passes town council and whenever it might pass?
Yeah, I think that it wouldn't be a regulatory thing like a zoning district. So it wouldn't be legally binding in that same way. It's more of a guidance tool. And yet I also think that members of the public would, the idea is that we can gain some clarity and certainty about how things are going to happen. I don't think it would require an amendment to the plan or anything super formal, but I think there probably would want to be a process where everyone would want to walk through, why are we making this? Why would we make this adjustment?
Thank
Some
you.
kind of a public.
Very helpful.
Yeah.
No more questions. Thank you, Chair.
I think that ends our question. So what we'd like to do now is open up the floor here for public comment. It's 3 minutes. There'll be David will have a timer. I'll try to time ourselves as well. We were very good on that. We were way under our 15 minutes that I allotted to us. And so, again, I'm not trying to cut you off to be mean. I think we're all in this together, right? So my ask is, when you do make your comments, to present them with, it would be helpful. You can say whatever you want, but it would be helpful if they're, help us make recommendations of any changes that we want on the plan. And then also, I just wish you to speak with kindness and empathy amongst your fellow citizens, because that's all of us are here as part of Tiburon. So thank you.
That's not discussion.
Oh yeah, and it's not just thank you. It's not a discussion. So if you go like, hey, Chuck, that's a great shirt you got on. I don't go like, hey, that's a great shirt you have on. It's not a discussion. It's you have your 3 minutes and then you step away, and then we will be up here listening. Believe me, your being here is very important. The comments that we received online, very important. People on the phone, very important. We'll be listening and internalizing these, and they will be part of our discussion as we go forward after the fact. So, but it's not a discussion back and forth. So it doesn't reset or something like that. So thank you. Appreciate you. All right. With that, who would like to come? Please, Mr. King, come on up. And then as he gets to the point, if you just want to line up behind him, that'd be great. Again, if you want to just state your name, if you don't have to though, if you don't want to, and then where you reside. I'm assuming you're all Tiburon residents, but if you say you're from Tiburon, and then the neighborhoods. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Bruce.
My name is Bruce King. I live on Hacienda Drive. And I've addressed these councils and the town councils previously. And I have a comment regarding the Parks Trail Map presented by WRT. A year ago, they presented a trail map that reflected that 25 of the 28 trailhead locations did not have parking. Coincidentally, I'd prepared a trailhead presentation, took pictures, and my pictures show that 27 of the 28 trailheads have parking. I prepared an analysis, which is included in my presentation, of what WRT presented and what was determined with what I would consider an unbiased review with David in the town council, which reflected 27 of the 28 trailheads have parking. WRT subsequently changed their trail map to show that these locations have either minimal or no street parking. Minimal is undefined. It's inconsistent with what the pictures show. And I'm more than happy to share the pictures with you if you're interested, but there is significant parking. You know the streets, you know your street, you know Reed Ranch Road, you know Gil Martin. There is substantial parking. And to go one step further, WRT knows this, okay? In their memo or their appendix, on page 23 of Appendix 3, it states, and I'm paraphrasing, that while the trailheads do not have formal car parking, typically there is room to park along the adjacent street. And this is in direct conflict of what Peter said in this meeting today. There is significant parking. And I would request that the trail map be changed appropriately. I've also mentioned many times that Pellegrinelli on his trail map is misspelled, and that it's actually a street, a drive instead of a lane. But these are just errors that I have noticed on the trail map, and I would request that you address them appropriately. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Greg Moore, and I've lived with my family in Tiburon for about 30 years now. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on behalf of the Greenwood Beach neighborhood. Our comments mainly focus on the Richardson Bay Lineal Park. We've submitted a letter to post with actionable recommendations, which I hope you'll read. First, we express our appreciation to the post commissioners, the town of Tiburon staff, WRT, and all the community members who have participated in the draft plan's various phases. Due to the careful listening and guidance of the post commissioners, the draft plan has much improved along the way. We encourage the post commission members to continue to listen and recommend improvements to the draft plan, even in these final stages. This evening, we have some broad themes with recommendations to present. Our first theme is to embrace nature. We endorse the components in the draft plan that foster nature and human connections to nature, yet we encourage the plan to embrace nature even a bit further, especially in the Blackie's pasture area. There is momentum with the recent funding by the Coastal Conservancy for the Greenwood Beach Restoration Project. We still believe the draft plan could come another step forward by promoting the opportunity for ecological restoration in this area on the adjacent shoreline uplands near Blackie's pasture. In our recommendation, our letter has specific recommendations. Find balance. It's a difficult thing to find the right balance of uses, amenities, and programs in any park area, much less the Richardson Bay Lineal Park. We believe some additional fine tuning would strike a better balance. In general, we continue to encourage uses that are more passive and park features that are more versatile and modest in scale, rather than uses or features that add significantly to visitation levels, noise, crowding, or increased traffic and congestion. Connect the dots. The current plan has made great progress in addressing some longstanding issues regarding pedestrian and bicycle access within the Lineal Park area, including the old rail trail and the proposed Class 4 bike lanes and Tiburon boulevards. We encourage continued study of this. It's critical for the functioning of the park, both access to and within the area, to increase the capacity of the system and a public safety for walkers, joggers, bicyclists, and e-bikelists who all use this corridor. Be neighborly. The draft plan addresses the importance of continuing consultation with neighborhoods adjacent to parklands. We encourage the next phase of planning to engage nearby neighbors to help identify the opportunities, constraints, and issues from a neighborhood perspective, and find solutions that are in keeping with the community's aspiration for their parks. I'll conclude where I began in expressing our deepest appreciation for the efforts of the post-commission members, the town staff, and the community who have expressed their hopes, recommendations, and concerns to make the final plan be the best plan possible. Thank you.
Ooh, thank you, Greg. Yeah, sure. Come on up. Good evening.
Hello, my name is Sissel Moller. I live on Greenwood Beach Road, right next to Blackie's pasture. And I've noticed tonight, and throughout the years, that you seem to forget that Blackie's pasture is open space. It was bought by the citizens of Tiburon in the early 1970s. It's open space and should be treated as open space. I just want to point that out again for the 100th time. Please don't forget that. It's important. And it's the law. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Elliot Brown. I live on Red Hill Circle off Lyford. I've been a Tiburon resident for about 9 years. It's the greatest place I've ever lived. And I'm a born and bred New Yorker, so that's saying a lot. So my question is just a little bit more narrow, but first I do really want to compliment not only the commissioners, but the whole process. It's just really impressive what you've produced, and I'm grateful for that. So my narrow issue is around dog parks. As I understand it, there have been many proposals, petitions, and vocal advocates over many years, long before I moved here, regarding an off-leash fenced-in dog park in Tiburon. Not surprisingly, the objections, as I understand it, have usually been about location, proximity to residences, obstruction of views, possibly unacceptable noise. And so the proposals have basically gone nowhere. In the time I've lived here, there was a petition which had at least 400 or 500 signatures, which also went nowhere. So as I read it, the two proposed locations are Cypress Hollow and South Knoll around the Lineal Park. I'm advocating for there have been so many proposals, I'm sure, about how to use the pond area. But I'm advocating for that. It's far away from residences, well below street level. Pond area is already fenced in. It would block no views. And from my experience with dog parks over decades, it indicates that there'd be very little noise and certainly none that would disturb the residents who live on the east side of Tiburon Boulevard. So that's really all I wanted to advocate for. But I also want to say that my dog is very grateful for her photo having been included in a picture of the walking tour of the of Blackie's pasture area. So thank you for that, and I appreciate the work you're doing.
Thank you so much. Anybody else? Oh. Hello.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Shadon. I live in the Bel Air neighborhood, and I do appreciate this effort that we all are involved in. What my concerns have to do with is the Bel Air open space, and it is an open space. There was a sign there that said that. You have received an email that documented that from our mayor that is aware of this. In any case, with Chairman Hornbrook, we attended a meetup in the open space organized by the Parents for Parks group. And that group is mainly compromised by people outside of the neighborhood. So many of us came. I started a survey. I haven't completed my survey, but I will be submitting the survey to you all and to the town council. And what I'm finding, and these are not my opinions, I tell people to answer honestly, is that most people just want the Bel Air open space area to remain as it is, but to be cleaned up, to be leveled. Nobody wants a play structure. What I'm hearing from the homes that back up to that play structure is that they don't really care that the occasional Frisbee or ball comes into their yard. The Parents for Parks group has advocated for banning kids playing baseball. Mr. Holmbrook thinks that's okay. He has stated that at our meetup. But this is not what the neighborhood wants. The people who live there, who have the baseballs coming into their backyard or the Frisbees or whatever, don't care. They say to me, they like hearing kids play there. It is an area that we don't have to deal with cars, and kids can run in there and organize whatever games they want. It also, although I don't use it that way with my dogs, it also works as a place for people to lob balls for their dogs on the west side of Tiburon. So we have in Tiburon, Blackie's pasture. We have downtown across from the Reed School campus. We have an area where people can lob balls for their dogs. And so all of these issues are important and need to be addressed. And really, WRT needs to talk to the neighborhood, because I'm going around and I'm talking to the neighborhood and I'm documenting. I don't care whether people agree with me or not. I'm documenting their opinions. And this is what is important. It is a small area. It's been that way for a long time. Kids use it. As the kids grow up, they use it. I would also like to say on the Richardson Bay Lineal Park, have you considered bikes and what's going on there? We need bike paths. In
It's
terms
been
of
3
Zelinsky
minutes.
Park,
I'm sorry, it's been 3 minutes.
okay,
Thank you.
yeah.
Sure. Come on up. Hi.
Good evening. My name is Pam Snellgrove, and I live on Greenwood Beach Road. I've been there for almost 40 years. And I live 4 houses in from where Greenwood Beach dead ends, and you do that zigzag to get through to Blackie's pasture. I just wanted to, in addition to thanking you all, as everyone has done, I thought that I should bring up the subject of transit in all modes, whether it's, and the importance of that in this plan, if it's to serve as kind of our overall guide going forward. I say that one reason being that we residents on Greenwood Beach Road found out about 7 years ago that we were part of the Bay Trail by seeing a sign that it had been posted at the intersection of Tiburon Boulevard and Greenwood Cove Road. No one from the town talked to us, no studies were done. All of a sudden, someone had bought signs and installed them. The point being that the right hand didn't seem to know what the left hand was doing. And so all of a sudden, from that sign going up, the bicycle traffic increased on our just 2-lane narrow residential street, from residents and kids going to school to every rental bike that is rented in San Francisco. And I'll just suffice to say that it's been a nightmare ever since. Therefore, a study was done on bicycle traffic on our street. And this was about 5 years ago, and it was found that there was no room for a bike lane, there was no room for sidewalks. And so that is where the idea of incorporating into the Caltrans plan, the idea of dedicated bicycle lanes came, not for the children to use going to school, but there is a whole background that has to do with this. So incorporated into these plans, I think it's really important to plan for and have properly designed entrances to our parks, and to make sure that we don't plan facilities or movement without really focusing on transit. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Christian Mioli. I'm the owner of Cine Lounge, 40 Main Street in Tiburon. We are more than just a movie theater. You know, my wife and I moved to Tiburon with the intention of bringing the community back together after the venue was closed for so many years. And you know, we do that in a number of ways. And over the course of the last year, we've been able to really bring together the community for a number of events, partnering and through more than just movies, events such as the debate watch night parties, debate night bingo. Or this forthcoming November 5th, we're going to be doing election day buffet dinner, right? And before that, we'll be doing a special Diwali brunch and the Prince and Princess Parade on Main Street and Bluey and Me on Tuesdays for the parents and caregivers, you know, from 4 to 6. So what we've done is, you know, it's an important part of this community, and communities have to be smart to fight for the movie theaters that are here. And we consider ourselves an art and entertainment center. And we have a for-profit arm, but for us to really have more community enveloped relationships, we created the nonprofit Belvedere Tiburon Film Society so that we can potentially do more community endeavors. And so I come here today to state that I believe it is integral and important for the theater, the entertainment center at 40 Main Street to be hosting and participating in a far greater amount of community events, and that we have an opportunity where, because I am a local based Tiburon resident, 1212 Mariner Way, and that we are here, that we can have something that other towns and cities would rival for, and that is a community relationship with each other and the town. So we can, unlike some other corporation, you couldn't get things done. We can get things done. We can serve the community. And please add us to this plan. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, my name is Edward McAuley. I live on Clare Way. I'm here representing myself, Lynn Marcotte, and I have questions here from us and also from some of our neighbors. I'd like to just read them into the record if I may. What's happened to the Marin County open space signs that were at both ends of the Bel Air open space? Were they removed legally? If so, under what official entity's authority? Where is the record of the authorization for this? When will the signs be returned? Has the Marin County open space designation been changed? If so, when did the Marin County open space designation change? Has Tiburon formally and legally annexed the Bel Air open space? What are the legal conditions under which that legal transaction occurred? Where are the records of that legal transaction? Verification of interest. May we ask, never mind, I'll skip that. With regard to the Bel Air plan specifically, the plan to mitigate, is there a plan to mitigate traffic congestion? Is there a plan to mitigate children and senior safety? Is there a plan for accessibility for disabled persons in compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act 1990? Does the Bel Air Open Space Park proposal complete is it under the auspices of the city, county, state, or federal law? Will there be additional police patrols to ensure security in the Bel Air neighborhood if any kinds of problems become evident in the park? What public safety entity will be designated and on which days and at which hours to receive calls from residents if they may need assistance? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Sure. Yeah.
Hello,
Hello.
Bruce Starr. I'm the owner of 160 Leland Way and 251 Karen Way in Tiburon. I've already submitted my letter through email and with correspondence. I'm number 4, but my friend's mother had a hip problem today and she would have spoken and she said, please read your letter for me. So I'm representing Marge and Joseph Renner on Clare Way in this on their behalf. Okay.
Thank you.
So I'm addressing it to you. I'll just read it. It's like 4 paragraphs. Okay. Many residents of Bel Air Estates appreciate this meeting. especially to clarify the difference between Bel Air's originally named play area and the Tiburon taxpayer-funded Cypress Hollow Park. And in unincorporated Marin days, I was a baby, but I was there. Bel Air Central Play Area was designated as minimal usage. After 1984 incorporation by Tiburon, the public list of open spaces recorded in the 1990 by the Tiburon Places, it puts Bel Air's play area as number 13 as an officially designated open space. And there were signs to that effect. No one can explain why the open space signs no longer are posted on the site, but there were signs on both occasions going in, going out for years. Bel Air's open space is the last tiny remaining Richardson Bay wetlands portion of the salt marsh land within which neighborhood was constructed. We saw it from the air when you showed that picture. Thank you. Nice job on that photograph. Okay, Bel Air Open Space has successfully contributed to decades as a refuge integral to generations as limited open space available to Tiburon residents. Residents who require more developed play structures have two taxpayer-funded options close at hand. Bel Air School, play structures are at their convenience, and they're less than a block away. And the town of Tiburon maintained publicly funded, not private, Cypress Hollow Park, west of Bel Air Estates. So please confirm the status of Bel Air's open space. And it's in your plan, you're calling it Bel Air Park. It's not. It's officially called Bel Air Open Space. And let it remain so. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Mindy Cantor. I've been a Bel Air resident for over 35 years. I submitted an email. It was in your packet earlier today. It's number 8. Somehow it disappeared. It's not even part of the list. So I will paraphrase what was in it. Little history, William Blackfield, the streets of Bel Air are named after William Blackfield, the developer, and his kids and family members. And he called it the vacant lot, which is the open space in perpetuity to the neighborhood as a multi-use passive area that was never to be developed. He deeded it to the neighborhood. Over the years, well, we used to have block parties, and his kids would show up, and we would all talk about how great that vacant lot is and its multi-purpose use. It's been used for informal soccer, softball, kite flying, birthday parties, Easter egg hunts, fetch with your dog, whatever. It's, I walk through it every day, as a matter of fact. And people think it's a treasure in the fact that it's undeveloped and in its natural state. I want to say that there isn't a drainage problem. I don't know where that came from. The drainage works fine, always has. So it's not broken, so I don't think it needs to be fixed. As far as a proposed paved path bisecting the whole area would ruin the area for any kind of multi-use. And that's what sidewalks are for, which you could, if you don't want to go through that area, you could walk around it on the sidewalk. Really doesn't need increased maintenance, which you say it does. Right now, summer and fall, the grass is beaten down. It's not watered, so it's dry. And usually in the spring, it needs mowing, and the town mows it as needed through the summer till it dries out again. That's the only maintenance that it needs. So I disagree with increased maintenance. I disagree with site drainage. Also, something about paving or some kind of perimeter walkway, which is superfluous. Anyway, I served as Chair and Commissioner of the Parks and Open Space Commission, which it was called then, for 15 years. And I also served as a Bel Air Homeowners Association President. So I'm well aware of the
Thank you.
history and hope this is helpful
Appreciate it.
in maintaining that.
Yeah. Thank
Thank
you very
you.
much. And thank you for your past service. Come on down.
My name's Ann Libben, and I live on the backside of Tiburon, which you haven't heard much about. You haven't heard much about trails, so I'd like to talk about both. I think that it's very important to consider, along with the cost of everything else, the cost of maintenance of the trails and even the existing supposed access and the town's maintenance of its easements for right-of-ways for access to the main ridge trails. There actually is an easement that goes from the top of Mateo Drive, where I live, up into the Ring Mountain open space. It is not maintained at all, except occasionally by the neighbors from Mateo Drive so that we can get through. The Tiburon open space that goes from Trestle Glen up to the Marin County space has an absolute mess of broom all over it. It gets cleaned along the fire road by the fire department so that they have access, but the town has not bothered to pay to do anything else. It's unsightly and a fire hazard, but it takes money to take care of that. It may be something that the town can work with Marin County Open Space. They have programs where they organize volunteers along with rangers to clear the invasive plants from their space, but that's just not happening on any of the Tiburon space other than Old St. Hilary's. And I also want to talk a little bit about, I was actually surprised to hear Pellegrinelli mentioned, because there's a gate that blocks access. If there's supposed to be an easement there, it's not happening. But also talk about integration with other entities, starting with Marin County Open Space, that has a lot of knowledge of management of trails and open space, but also that we need to look a little wider, I think, as you start looking at some of the development and costs. That the Tamalpais Union High School District has several public pools. Mill Valley has Elaborate Community Center. Belvedere's Community Center already is used by the ranch. There's a lot of indoor gym space in our Reed School District gyms that goes unused outside of the school day. So there are some ways to do things that won't be quite so costly. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Hello.
Nice shirt.
Thank
Yeah. Hi, I'm Brian Zalian. I grew up again in Bel Air. I'd just like to paint a picture for you of a Bel Air in the 60s where it dead ends at Blackfield, opening up into Ranchero creeks and blackberry bushes and forts and eucalyptus trees. That's where we used to go to play. Once it was developed in the late 60s, early 70s, and the houses and the streets were developed, the children of Bel Air would go into the open space. It was our last refuge. It was our last space that we could go to. We used to go into the hills, and we found ourselves back in the open space of Bel Air, being able to go into the quietness of it all. It felt good. It felt like our space. It felt like freedom. If we needed to go play, there was Bel Air School. All we had to do was cross the street and go up the hill, and the playground was there. The baseball field is there. Everything is already there. Reed School District supplies that already. We didn't need to go far, but the openness of that area to sit down, look up into the sky after the hills were taken away from us was our sanctuary. And so I'd like to say that I'd like you to go back and visit that. And if you haven't seen Bel Air School in a while, go up to Bel Air again and see that the playground is perfectly fine for kids who want to play. But for the peacefulness and the sanctuary of it all, Bel Air is very lucky. So around Clare Way, we have this quiet moment to be there in this open space. And so I advocate for us to keep that, to have it remain there for the children who are growing up there now. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Come on down, salmon shirt.
Hi there, I'm Andrew Thompson, former mayor, 2 residents, both in the one in the Reedlands and then another one right back here on Mar West. First of all, I want to congratulate you guys and applaud you for your efforts in trying to address all of this. I do have some advice as somebody who was the leader of or integrally a part of it on the council on some of the, probably the largest projects in Tiburon, including this town hall, library, police station, Old St. Hilary's purchase, etc. I have an intimate knowledge of how to get things done. One of the things that I would like to point out going forward is we've already had pretty much the work done already on the survey, but it's starting to work. It can work against you because when you do a big master plan that spans the whole community, small neighborhoods get very scared and they think they're going to get run over by the plan. And so they start to get fear, have fear over abstract ideas, and they start to fight you. So the real solution is you keep the master plan in your head and then work on each part with the immediate neighborhood and piece everything together. This is what I did on the missing links of the Ridge Trail from Gilmartin to the Old St. Hilary's open space took 4 years, super quiet, negotiating with each home one by one until it was done. It was never even in the paper until everything was locked up. If it was part of this master plan today, we probably would have had lawsuits and God knows we might have not been able to get it done. So I'm not trying to be deceitful or hiding anything from anyone. It's just, this is how you build cooperation. So I do appreciate everything you guys are doing. I hope that I will be able to help guide this process further if elected. And I just appreciate your guys' efforts, service to the town. I hope you appreciate my advice, and I hope you can put up with my shameful self-promotion tonight.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello. Sorry, I didn't prepare comments because I already sent my email in, but my home backs up to Bel Air. I live in Bel Air. My home backs up to Bel Air Park. And I have 3 kids and we do use the space and it's a wonderful space. And I think this has been a great process for everybody to come out. And I've learned a lot about the history of that space and how people used it in the past. And it's very lovely that the neighbors, are very passionate about its designation and how it's used. I think I just would like to make 2 comments. Number one, I agree with previous people who've made comments at this meeting that it would be nice to kind of get a final clarification about the, legal status. Like if it is open space, my understanding would be that dogs would not be allowed off leash in that space. And then there should be maybe more attention paid to the, promoting the native plants if it really is open space. So I'm a little confused about that since it's been, used as a dog park historically. And then second, I would just like to emphasize that, I'm a mom with young kids and I don't know a single person who wants a playground there. Nobody's asking for that. Not in our neighborhood, not from other neighborhoods in Tiburon. So I do feel like that's a little bit of a miscommunication. It's not in the WRT plan. Like, I just don't really understand where the idea of having a playground in our backyards came from. And I definitely would be opposed to having significant development or a playground in that space. It's not technically feasible either because of the storm drain. So I think it would really be great if we could just kind of reframe the conversation around like what kind of minor upgrades would benefit people of all ages who use that space. And myself in particular, I use it pretty regularly with my kids, and I've been really happy with the improvements that have happened with the garbage cans. So there's not as much poop, the divots being filled in so that my kids can safely run without risking breaking an arm. And I think other minor improvements would go a long way, like WRT is suggesting, at just improving everyone's ability to use the space, plus making it potentially more accessible for people with mobility issues or disabilities. So I just want it to be a wonderful neighborhood gathering area and play area for the kids. And I think most people, everyone pretty much that I've talked to is on board with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hi, I'm Brian Brown. I'm third generation Tiburon. Grew up in Bel Air neighborhood. And I just want to go on the record that I think the open space is just, it's perfect the way it is. You know, I mean, I remember being a little kid, I used to call it going to the jungle. And I have good memories of going there, just being out in the wild, you know. A little bit of maintenance, I think, would be great. But I don't really think I showed up today because I heard through the grapevine they're gonna bulldoze the open space and build tennis courts and all this stuff. I'm one of those small neighborhoods that got freaked out. So I was glad to see that it wasn't on the report. I think accurately assessed, it doesn't really have much potential for anything more than what it is. It's just a nice little postage stamp open space that is it's our McKegney Green, as it was called in the presentation, the crown jewel of Tiburon. It's kind of our little crown jewel. It's just a nice little lot. We can do whatever we want with it as residents of the neighborhood. And it, like, as a little kid, like I said, it was a wild adventure to go there. And as I came back, as over the course of my life, it had a different role in every chapter of my life. You know, I was able to take strolls with my family after Thanksgiving, stuffing myself, going to the park and just sitting there with the dogs and on leash with the dogs, walking around, picking up our poop afterwards, being a great citizen in the open space, the way it is. And I just think once we start bringing in like developments and play structures, and again, I'm glad I didn't see anything like that on the presentation, we lose that rustic charm of just having a lot in the neighborhood. There's something romantic about just having a vacant lot. And, you know, I throw a baseball as a little kid over the fence, and guess what? That's part of the community. That's an experience. I have to go around. Hi, Mr. Wilson, I lost my baseball in your yard. Can I get it? I mean, we don't want to lose that charm that this brings. You run into people coming back from holidays, from college, you're on summer break, you walk down the open space with your parents, you run into your neighbor kid that you grew up with, you hadn't seen since you guys went to college with their people. I'm not going to be going to the open space if there's a playground with little kids running around. You know, it's just cooler, just simple. You know, at night, it's open, it's vacant. During the day, people come, it's just perfect. Just don't touch the open space. We don't need anything else. Thank you.
I think a mistake was made with the consultant in putting Bel Air open space in a mini
sorry.
park instead of it being designated as open space.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Peter.
I know. Is there anybody in Bel Air right now, though? That's the question.
Well, yeah, and back to your point, you're glad to you're glad to see us all. And I think Brian, you know, did a pretty good idea of why we like the open space, the park, whatever you want to call it. There are some improvements that could be made. I think perhaps owl boxes to help with the gophers, which might lessen the dogs digging holes and creating ankle twisting issues. I think the garbage cans are kind of new. I still don't use them, but I guess I'm glad they're there. But the passion I think you're seeing to leave it alone is the lesson I hope that you're gaining here. So I think you've heard that. So I would like to kind of change direction a little bit here. I'm a cyclist, and I'm glad to see the improvements that you're asking for the railroad trail. I still call it the bike path, but it sort of is, it's perplexing to me that you're spending this energy and doing a great job. Thank you. But we don't have water there anymore. I mean, water fill bottles are, you've got the stations, you spent the money, but they're not turned on. Ever since, I don't know why, but they're just, so maintaining what we already have is kind of, I'm not sure who's directing that. I don't know if it's you guys who need to talk to the Parks Department of Open Space, but it's kind of befuddling. It's like, wait, these guys are working all the time and, you know, getting the park mowed. It's okay, we call them, they show up, they mow it, and then all the grass is left. And so I have vision problems on my lower things. So I trip over grass this high. I don't really care, but I think the point I'm trying to create is getting from post to the Parks Department, say, look, this is your job. This is what we need. This is what your supervision should be about, and some clear directions on that. Because I'm not sure if our street department, our park department have a real definition of what they're doing, because there's an amalgam of both going on. And actually, I get attitude when I'm the citizen asking to say, hey guys, how about this? One of the things that's been frustrating is painting the curbs white at night, so with reflective paint. Guys who want to transfer, I mean, who want to commute from the ferry to Reedland Woods, you know, we ride bikes and our heads are down and we're looking up, and a light flashing on a curb gives us a lot of information, just like the white lines that you get driving. This type of infrastructural improvements are very tangible. And I just want to put out a, yes, please, let's do that. Let's kind of bring it up. The Greenwood Beach neighbors, I think they've got a real issue. I mean, I remember when as kids going to bikes, if I'm out.
Yeah.
Okay,
sorry.
I'll leave that for another day. Thanks.
Okay, thank you so much. There might, not that there's a go back and forth, but there might be an agenda item in November on maintenance and operations in the parks, I think, right? Yeah, okay. So that will be a topic discussed. So thank you. Yes, sir.
I'm not from Bel Air.
And you are still welcome.
I'm Mike Shepard. I've lived in Tiburon for about 27 years, about half of it along the old rail trail between south of Knoll Park and the Belvedere Tennis Club. I'm in the park all the time. I tend to ride my bike to and from the ferry unless I'm coming to a late meeting here. And I'm in the park with my dog every day. And I thank the commission and WRT for just a terrific process, really well considered. Everything vetted, surveyed, with the possible exception of the proposal I heard tonight that we have 2 bike trails running through part of the linear park. It's an interesting proposal. It's a complicated issue because it is dangerous to have all these different speeds going on the bike path. But I'm not sure that having 2 trails, and trails wouldn't be the right word. One of them sounds more like a bike expressway that's going to be running through the park. I'm not sure that's the right solution, especially since you can't have 2 trails running all the way through. And then you're going to have some ridiculously frightening merge at some point. And I don't know that we want to encourage a lot of high-speed bike riding through the park. I don't really think we want to pave paradise and have a second paved bike lane running through there. So what do we do? Because it is really a problem. I would hope the commission or the council or whoever the right group would be would engage with the Tiburon Police Department. As a lawyer, and by the way, I'm not running for office and I'm not pumping my business, but as a lawyer, in the criminal justice world, I hesitate to talk about enforcement, but I think you might try a little enforcement, not just warnings, just something to try to enforce the speed limit and see if that works. And if not, as someone else suggested, there's the possibility of using Tiburon Boulevard for the high speed. So I think more thought, I would hope you would not endorse that recommendation if it is one. Thank you.
Thank you. And I didn't pay him either, but in our November meeting, we're actually talking about enforcement of rules on Old Rail Trail with the police department. So both those topics actually will be in our November meeting. So thank you for bringing that up.
Hi, I'm a Tiburon resident. I'm a member of Parents for Parks and Rec, a local group that has come together because of this master planning process. And we are just really excited to see more park amenities for kids, for families, and really for everybody. I've been attending public meetings and workshops for over a year. My first one was September of last year. I just want to thank everyone for all of the time and effort you've put into engaging the community and keeping the community informed. And thank you for bringing this master plan to fruition. I submitted a letter with my specific wishes for our parks. So tonight I just want to say that, as I've said before, recreational space is critical to people's health and to the health of our community. And I really support this plan and encourage the Post Commission and the town council to adopt it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in chambers who would like to speak? Okay. David, do we have people online? If you'd like to speak, they need to raise their hand.
Yes, so if you're online, please use the raise your hand feature so I know you want to speak. I see none so far. Oh, okay. Hey, Doreen.
All right. Thank you, David.
Hello?
Yep, we can hear you. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
I want to thank you. I'm a Tiburon resident since 1987. I live downtown. I want to thank you all for having this, and I appreciate all the time and effort that everybody is putting into trying to decide what's best for us going forward with our parks and recreational activities. I did hear a number of people speak, and I share the same view that they do with the fact that in many instances, I think more is less is more, and that we have a natural beauty here, and they may be called parks, but they're really more open spaces. And we have such a natural beauty with open public areas where everyone can come and enjoy. But I think we need to think very seriously about how much we want to add to them in terms of structures or buildings or other things. That concerns me a lot. So one area that I just want to make comments on specifically is downtown Shoreline Park, which I think is a wonderful opportunity for everyone to come and enjoy the walking path and the beautiful views of the water and the city across from us and the green grass and just the natural serene beauty. And I don't think it's an appropriate place to put a play space, maybe nearby in Zielinski Park or Tether Park, but not here on the waterfront where it's so serene. And I think it should just remain pure. And I know there've also been suggestions of adding a restroom But I don't think this is the area where one is needed. I understand it in McKegney Green and other areas, but here we want to encourage the tourists to come in and enjoy our space, to also go to our local stores and restaurants. And there's public restrooms off of Main Street by Sam's. There's many restaurants that, they don't preclude you from using their bathrooms. And I don't think this is a place where we need to add another building, which would be very out of place and obstruct the enjoyment of everyone in enjoying Shoreline Park. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you.
Parker, I believe that's you, the 415.
Hey, thanks, David. It's Parker Pringle. I live down Reed Heights, Tiburon Knolls. Can you hear me?
Yes, go
Hard
ahead,
to hear
please,
you,
Parker.
Parker. Okay.
Give a
All
little
right,
bit.
sorry.
You sound good.
Just specific recommendations.
A little bit too long.
If there's a way,
Oh, that was to kiss up, honey. You got to
if
kiss up.
there's a way to,
I've been
I'm
doing
hearing
this for
somebody talking
years.
over. Can you guys hear me? I'm hearing somebody talking so much.
yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's good. We're good now, Parker.
Okay.
Go ahead. Go for it.
Okay, specifically, can the, with respect to the Greenwood Beach restoration project with the Delta and the removal of all that sand, it would be nice if the stand-up paddleboard people on the commissioners, is there a way to fit in something in the plan that goes to the town council that addresses that? Because it's, it's sounding like that we're not going to actually build a dock anywhere right now. And so that's going to put, that's going to make that access more important. And once it's gone, it's probably gone. It's going to be replaced with bay mud. You're not going to be able to walk over that. And then downtown at Shoreline Park, second, the recommendation that you just heard, I suggest you remove the restroom thing, because Point Tiburon Bayside has a say-so over structures built at the park. And they're just not going to be keen on a bathroom, probably. The other thing is, Shoreline Park is represented in the one of the maps on the in the report as stopping at Ferry Plaza. I believe Shoreline Park goes all the way down to the corner of Main Street, and maybe you could check on that. And then valet parking down there at Shoreline Park. The Capri submitted their application to Community Development Department to get permission to use a lot of the parking down there for valet parking. And there's a BCDC permit involved. There's the terms of the dedication of Shoreline Park involved. And none of that stuff is mentioned. So it would be nice if you guys can figure out a way to squeeze that in, because the parking situation is important in Shoreline Park, and I think it would be good to be mentioned in the master plan. That's it. Thanks. And thank you so much for your hard work.
Great. Thank you, Parker.
We have Julie.
Julie.
Hi, this is Seth Jacobs. I'm using Julie's Zoom. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Seth.
Thank you. I agree with the previous commenters about leaving Shoreline Park as a pristine open space. And just want to highlight again what a previous commenter said about the development of Shoreline Park being subject to a subdivision improvement agreement that was entered into a long time ago between the town and the Point Tiburon Bayside condominium community, which precludes the town from agreeing to create any structure on Shoreline Park that would obstruct any view corridors. So it's hard to imagine how building a building that would have public restrooms, for example, would not obstruct any view corridors. And seeing that there's a recommendation in this plan to consider doing something that would have a very high likelihood of violating the subdivision improvement agreement, I think that the plan should at least either remove that or create a footnote or some kind of proviso that says it's subject to that contract or agreement between the town and the condominium association that precludes any development of that park that would block any view corridors. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else on the Zoom call that would like to make a comment, please raise your hand.
Okay. Nope. Anybody else in chambers or you? Anybody? Okay. All right, I'd like to close public comment. Thank you, David. And then let's open it up for discussion. It is 5-ish to 8. So just kind of keep that in mind. There's a lot that was provided by our community peers, so I appreciate their comments. Does anybody want to? I have a lot I could kick off.
Please.
Okay. And I thought it was very interesting with Bel Air Park. So actually, I reached out to the Historical Society on Bel Air Park, and I'm sorry that everybody left from Bel Air. They all went back to Bel Air, but it actually has been. There was a discussion about like it doesn't flood a lot and things like that. Actually, because it was a marshland and it does have drainage issues, it actually does flood a lot, and that was from 1953. So I think that there's some interesting discussions about so a level of sophistication that we don't have that wasn't done in 1953 when that was put in about allowing for improved drainage of the hillside basically that's above there, as well as everything else coming down to encourage that piece. So I think that was an interesting point. And I thought it was just interesting hearing the discussions about, and I think we see this in the data that Peter provided again, I've mentioned this a number of times, the bimodal distribution of this town of population ages and there's people who have been here who it's actually an interesting group. It's people who've been here that are my age and older, so 57 and older, who maybe don't have kids, who have been here for a while and their kids they're empty nesters, or they just moved here and they have different needs, that group. And then there's a lot of new homeowners who've came here who basically paid 6 times what somebody who moved here 20 years ago paid. And they have smaller kids and they came here because we have one of the best school districts in the country. So I think it's an interesting wrestling match with all the different pieces and additions on this. I do have a lot of like additions that I'd like to talk through on the study of things that maybe we should add. But at the end, what I'd like to do is by 8:30 is that we go like, yes, we approve the plan, or yes, we approve the plan with these changes. I think it's going to be more the latter. At least there's a couple things, but I could be talked out of them. Like one of them would be like changing ABC to necessary, strategic, and transformative, and ST, just by the nature of because nobody will ever do the C's. That's, I mean, when you do a priority list, you do ABC and you're like, oh, we'll get to the C's whenever, as opposed to like, that's a transformative piece. It's like something that would really change. And I think that's an important notion. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about what to do. Angela, does that make sense? So, I mean, I made a lot of notes on the study, but I don't want to go piece by piece and group edit. What do you guys think?
I think I think those sound like great edits, revisions to the study. I would agree with those. I do have sort of a list of comments that I'd like to just register, but
Like, go for it.
Okay. So I'm just gonna go through my list of my list of thoughts that I wanted to share in the forum, in the public meeting. I have heard loud and clear that we should not consider significant structures or major changes at Bel Air Park. I think there are still small, very, very, very insignificant small upgrades that could be made to make that better for even just the neighborhood folks who love it for what it is. And for the rest of the community who can go and visit this place. It is really just an empty lot. It could be a little better than an empty lot. I think we should strike the bathroom at Shoreline like this, I don't know what page it is, it's not numbered, but where it lists each park and it lists like there's a possibility of, consider adding a public restroom at Shoreline Park. I think we should just strike that, just get it out of the report. I think it's not feasible and I think it's sort of widely rejected by, I would assume, not just the people who live down there, but a lot of the community because that place is prized for its views. I think that it is possible that there could be a play element, but I would change sculptural into like nature-based, low profile, super low profile. If that was a consideration, keyword here is consider. It's still not a recommendation. In my mind, we as townspeople and we as post commissioners should try to get a handful of things done. And I think the town council and anyone running for the town council should try to get a handful of things done. And some of those are really low hanging fruit, but we should really, really get these done. One is some playground additions. Some of these could be nature-based and really inexpensive and easy to do in a few of the mini parks or in some of the park areas like Blackie's Pasture. I think Zelensky Park, Blackie's Pasture, Belveron Mini Park, Cypress Hollow would all be good for some really low cost playground additions. Again, could be nature-based, could be like logs for kids to play around and little nets and things that won't change they won't change the nature of the place. They won't change, they're not putting massive structures up. I do think with the bigger structures we have, we need enhancements and upgrades. So with the existing structures, enhancements and upgrades, that's south of Knoll and Cypress Hollow. I really want to note that we need accessible play areas. I cannot forget the mother who came and told us that there was no place in Tiburon for her child with a disability. We have to change that. Sanitation ponds, I just want to say, I think it should be a grassy field. Lacrosse and soccer are feuding over field time on the one grassy field that this town has. And they're the only ones who really get to use it because they're using it max capacity. That leaves no grassy field for anyone else in this town to play a game of pickup soccer or football or lacrosse or whatever it may be. I think a grassy playing field at the sanitation pond location would be great. It doesn't pose noise problems. Although I'm not too concerned about noise problems there because there is incredible highway noise right there. But I think that would be a win across the board. I could see it as like a multi-use court, but I think it would be better as a grassy playing field. Really quickly, we need a SUP launch. We need to get the SUP launch done, or the watercraft, small watercraft launch, whatever that is, kayak SUP. I really think we need to get this done. We need to find a location for it. We have a subcommittee, so hopefully we'll come back. But for folks on town council, please approve that. I also think we need a shaded picnic area at Blackie's Pasture. We have 3 picnic tables that are all apart from each other. It makes no sense. We need 3 picnic tables next to each other with a shade structure so that a family can have a birthday party. Or that a neighborhood can have a little like block party gathering right there. It's not hard to do. I think there's that little embankment next to the higher part, next to that like higher trail that I'm blanking on the name of. One of the picnic tables is already there. It would not create any view shed problems for anyone. We were just there the other day. It does not block view. It's the perfect little sheltered embankment to tuck in a little shaded picnic area. And in the space between that area and the actual bathroom could be some nature-based play structures for kids. It's perfect because it's right next to the shaded picnic table area and right next to the bathroom. So I think we should really, this is low hanging fruit. We need to get this stuff done. Signage at trails, we need to get better signage. That's easy. It's been on our to-do list. Just get it done. And online info about all the park spaces and features. We need to really get that done. We have now the materials. I think it's just a matter of like getting somebody to put it on a website. I think our parks, all of this, these are my recommendations. Oh, one more. There's a segment of Greenwood Beach that is, or like near Greenwood Beach, that is public park. Right now, there's a little gravel sanitation road that loops around it. That's a perfect space for native vegetation and a little like children's interpretive nature walk or something educational about the history of the area and the beautiful species of birds that migrate from all over the world through Richardson Bay. I think it'd be a great area for little kids and for native plants and sort of native interpretive. Would also beautify that weedy field for the neighbors at Greenwood Beach. I think they'd probably like that. That's it. I think also in addition to all this, these are sort of hard additions in the world of like soft things we need to do. We should really gather and convene more community events in the parks, have more art, have more educational events. But those aren't specific upgrades and they don't require any investments. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Liz. Yeah. I mean, I do have some, I want to hear your thoughts on it, but at the end, we're gonna have to make some changes.
Yes. Okay,
So,
thank you.
So I've been thinking just high level as you go through your comments.
Yeah.
That there's the discussion on the zones. Park items specifically, like what Liz just mentioned regarding the restroom at the Shoreline Park. The priority list, whether or not those are priorities. And then other missing items or things that need to be changed. So like, for example, one of them was that there's no mention in the maps about where there's public access for beaches. Something that David and I actually were emailing back and forth about a couple of days ago. So that's on 2 like large maps. It was just something that was missed. It's a geo overlay that should be there. So I just wanted to mention that within your comments as you think about that, Mr. Burr.
Got it. Yeah, I am curious to see what changes we want to make that are specific. I will say, first off, there is a spelling error on page 25 of the actual plan. The word strengthens and the last bullet is misspelled. I just want folks to know how closely we read this plan. Yeah, I across the board support the plan. I think I hear the concern on pulling out some of these potential pieces. Like, to be clear, I totally support the idea of pulling out a bathroom at Shoreline Park, although somewhere in the report it says there is a bathroom at Shoreline Park, and then another place it recommends maybe considering one. There's a lot of stuff in here that could potentially be, that folks wouldn't be excited about. So I don't know how useful it'll be to be like pulling out a lot of individual pieces, but I do think the bathroom at Shoreline Park is one that I'm okay with. I do think for the final version of the plan, I'm assuming we can still make, provide some feedback. I think that there was not as much discussion tonight, which I think is going to be really critical as this comes across the finish line, which is just having that scaled of the different character zones for the park. character park zones or whatever the proper terminology is. It might be good. We had it in some of the earlier drafts, but just like a very kind of more zoomed in, like where exactly the lines are drawn between the different character maps, R1, R2, R3, particularly around Blackies. You know, I'm zooming in on my laptop as close as I can get, but I still think a little more granularity in the final plan probably would be a good thing.
Can I, and just to interrupt you real fast,
Please.
On page 86 of the PDF of the master of the plan, is that detailed enough?
Is this the final? Yeah, it is the final.
Yeah,
plan.
this
Okay.
is-
Yeah,
I
this
mean-
is good. This is good. I skipped over this one, so this
Clearly the typos were what.
Well,
yeah.
no, it's actually I would prefer to see a little more of an overlay, and it almost looks like this was attempted to be an actual image. I think an aerial image with this same granularity. I personally think it could go a little bit smaller. You could probably break this section up into 2 or 3 different sections. Again, I'm talking on page 86 of the current plan. I do think it would be helpful, alleviate just future concern or any, sort of questioning over where exactly these boundaries are at. So probably would be good to add something with an aerial if possible, so we can just avoid conflicts in the future that say, oh, no, the plan said this was R3, oh, the line's over there. Just like neighbors fight over trees every single day. I really do feel like the community's feedback, this commission's feedback, the town councils has been implemented in this. And so I really do appreciate, and that's why I asked the sort of innovative approach that we're taking here. As we all know, we've seen it in housing. There's always a concern about like creating the zones, but it also can be used against you. I think we heard that earlier from Mr. Thompson. I mean, you do create a situation where you're creating zones, but like, there's still a lot of work that has to be done to get anything done. And I hope the community hears loud and clear that, at least myself, and I think some of my fellow post commissioners really do want to tap into the energy that we're seeing from parents of young kids in this town. As one of those parents with a 2 and a 4-year-old, I cannot explain enough that we need more. And we hope that this framework is going to provide that opportunity. We're not talking about putting carousels out there at Shoreline Park or anything big like that, but we're talking about little improvements that are going to go a long way and will enable us to stop leaving town on Saturday and Sundays because they want to go to Corte Madera Park, where there's significantly more. And it is frustrating to hear from community members that like, oh, just go to another town. We don't want that to be the option. We want to provide opportunities for our kids to play here and be near the water and to be able to walk or bike to be in these parks and to enjoy it. I was fascinated that no one from my neighborhood was here tonight, maybe 1 or 2 people, but I did want to give a shout out to the Reed Heights and Tiburon Knolls neighborhood. Perhaps everyone's getting ready for our big Halloween party tomorrow night. Please come by 5:30 in the neighborhood. But I think I'd be remiss if I didn't note that the concerns that we've heard in letters are dead on. I mean, anything that happens at the ponds, at down near Blackies or near McKegney, we have to consider parking, safety and access, noise, and then any potential visual impact. I don't think there's a resident of Tiburon who would not be somewhat concerned about having their view blocked. So I just want to make it clear that we hear these concerns loud and clear, and they all will be taken into consideration as we move forward, but we cannot let them, we have to work through these issues. We can't just cite them and think that that's going to be enough to prevent things from happening and these improvements from happening. This next phase is going to be really critical, and I really hope as a commission we tap in to the energy that has been behind this. I really do give credit to you, Mr. Chair, creating the subcommittees that we did at our last meeting, and what I think we'll have follow up in November. We really do want to make sure that we're using that energy to address concerns, perhaps misconceptions, kind of like what we heard from the Bel Air neighborhood with what like may have. I'm not sure where the play structure proposal came from, and someone please tell me if it was in there. But I know there was much more modest, potential like drainage improvements. That was the only thing that we really talked about. But we fully expect that all, those improvements will be vetted in the future. But we are hoping, as you've heard a few times, to get some early wins of this thing as this moves forward. So I think with that, I'll send it back to you, Mr. Chair, unless anyone else has comments. Thank you.
I have some comments. I think we should put pickleball in everyone's neighborhood parks, and then we will have a room full of people. No, I'm just kidding, obviously. I'm kidding. I just want to take a
Caught that. That's a good headline.
Yeah, all right, please don't print that. Take a moment, let's just take a moment and go back to why are we even here? Why we're working on this master plan? And the Post Commission is an advisory body. We are appointed to be on this commission. We are not voted in, and we advise town council on what they should do. So we do a lot of work for them and hope that they take our advice and say, oh, we don't have to do all that work because Post already did it all for us. So we've had tons of different projects come up to us over time. Everything from a dog park, great idea. Sand volleyball, which was also being offered to be paid for, great idea. Picnic areas, beach restoration projects, finally like coming to fruition after I don't know how many years. Playgrounds to pickleball, soccer and lacrosse, community events, gardens, bike tracks, exercise stations. All of these are wonderful ideas and amazing things to add to our community. But like building a house, or perhaps you might want to think of it more of like we had $1 bazillion when we were building a compound. The land and structure, the amenities need to be thought out. You can't just throw stuff in there as it comes to the commission, because then you might end up putting in a pool where you should have put in a pickleball court, or you put a dog park in where you should have had a community field or a community garden. So you'll end up with a hodgepodge of ideas. And even just talking about it tonight, how Liz said that the picnic tables were not put into the right location, and we should have moved them and put them over where there's shade, and include a shade structure. So like we already have things in our park that we've built that might not be in the right place, and we already are finding that we need to move them. So I don't want it to be a waste of time, effort, and expense to make mistakes and have to move things around. So that's why we, honestly, I think it was Commissioner Hornbrook and now Town Council member Nick Farr and myself that really kind of pushed this idea to Town Council, saying like, we're having all these ideas. We need help on knowing where to put them into the park. And so we want to have a researched and thought out community-driven plan to implement these new amenities that the town would like to have. This is not a plan to turn Richardson Bay Lineal Park, Old Rail Trail, Blackie's Pasture, and the smaller parks into some sort of Coney Island of Tiburon. Okay, this is a roadmap. This is a plan, a decision-making tool for what, why, where, and how any new amenity should be incorporated, built, and maintained, so that our entire park system, open space, and trail system can work together to provide the optimal user experience for all residents of the Tiburon Peninsula. I don't think that there's any reason for fear-mongering and worry about huge changes in the future. Post and the Town Council are focused on what's called the total cost of ownership. And we will be reluctant to add any amenities to our park system that we cannot pay for or maintain. So to that point, as mentioned in the final draft, we need to increase our maintenance staff, at least at a minimum of 1 full-time employee. And we need to increase funding for the parks to have maintenance, to remove invasive species, to fill in the potholes, to upgrade outdated playground equipment, Cypress Hollow, looking at you, South and Old Park, and town staff has been, knowing this for a long time, that we need to have a maintenance plan for the DPW so that they can be most effective. They were supposed to have some sort of software that was helping them figure out when to do all these different things that they have to do. I'm not sure that that was ever implemented, but I think that when people get stuck in the weeds of the small things of this project and thinking that all of these things are going to be built, it's not even realistic. So if we could pick a few of the smaller things to work on, and obviously the huge things like a community center at $17 million or more, that's going to be difficult. Let's partner with one of our neighboring communities that has a community center and a pool and pickleball courts and tennis courts. Like, we don't need to reinvent the wheel when you can go for less. You don't even have to get to Highway 101 to reach these things. So I urge the public, if they want to learn about what the plan is, to go to the source of the plan. The ARC is great, and they have a really good way of getting our word out. But please don't just rely on your neighbor for what's happening, because then you're going to end up with all the people from Bel Air Park thinking that we're adding huge things to their park when that wasn't even in the plan, and they came and saw it today. So please take the time to read the plan and hopefully come and support it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So I mean, other than my earlier comments, I'd much rather go through parts of the plan to say, like, do we want to change anything on this? And a lot of it's based on public comment and based on just my review of these pieces. And it's a little bit also on the, oh my, are they really going to put this here? So it may be a way to help adjust that. So specifically back on the table I was mentioning to Mr. Burr on page 84 on the different zones of both maybe removing things or adding things.
Which page was that?
Page 84 of the
Details R1 through.
Yeah, the details, table 9. So specifically, a lot of folks, and then when I kind of, in the absence of like, do I trust these people? That everyone saw amphitheater and amphitheater seating, and they thought that Red Rocks was going to be transplanted, which is a great venue. It's also, Red Rocks Amphitheater is owned by the city of Denver, I think still. So it's a great little municipal where I spent a lot of my youth at. I don't think we're going to be putting it. I mean, so, and this gets to the plan intention. So you guys can say like, no, just leave it in because it's okay. But that's what people are somewhat getting hung up on, is they see this amphitheater and they're like, aha, that town is going to build an amphitheater. I know it. And then we say, no, we're not going to build an amphitheater. I mean, why would we do that? It's going to be really expensive. But they're like, yeah, but then why is it in the plan? I'm happy to say, like, Chuck, just don't stop with the conspiracy theorist. But I mean, that's the concern I think a lot of people have with the plan in general.
Chuck, I think you're right. I think that is what's been so confusing and misunderstood and misinterpreted by people. And I think this is a good motion. What I think we should do, I'm not saying I'm making a motion, but I think it's a good recommendation. What I think we should do is there's several pages, like I'm looking at page 63, like basically any page of the plan that shows the full menu, put in an appendices. Make it an appendices. That's what's possible. That's research. All that is like a research appendices. And what the core parts of the plan are, the actual recommendations for each park area. And that was like, gosh, what page is that? We were just looking at that. That's where you like list what the considerations are for each of the mini parks and for the major park areas.
99.
And where you have the zoning, that's the recommendation. Like that's the plan. So I would put all those big like menu options and sort of all the things that list, any slide that lists things that were pretty much are never happening in the next couple of years, are not happening in the next
No,
couple of years.
but I think it has to be, it's never gonna happen ever.
Maybe,
I mean, that's the piece of, on the point. And it's also like, I look at this and like, I mean, the guy who came, who said like, yeah, the settling ponds, a great place for a dog park. And as I was sitting there taking the photo and that watching that, I'm like, God, this would be a great place for a dog park. But I don't, it's not clear to me that that's where we would put a dog park. I'm not sure even what zone that is. It doesn't say dog park, so not that I can see.
That's
So
R1.
is it an R1? Sports fields. That is though? R1 is active and recreational?
Says sanitation.
Oh, sanitation site is, yeah, but it doesn't say dog park can go there. So it says typical uses. Again, I know that that's not legislative language, that thou shalt do this, but it's being read as that's the option.
What if we just took typical uses out?
Well, we had this discussion. This is
84.
page 84.
Table 9.
Yeah, table 9. I mean, it's supposed to be there for guidance. For people go like, what would be there? So would you put a volleyball court there? Well, yes, you would, because it's an active use. It's a sports court. I got that. That makes sense. But it doesn't say fenced in dog park, which again, and that's a great point. There is no fenced in dog park in Belvedere and Tiburon. Nothing. You can have your dog off leash playing fetch at Blackie's pasture. You can have your dog off leash in Belvedere's Tom Price Park. Play fetch. That's no problem. You can have your dog off leash at Bel Air Park. You can have your dog off leash at Cypress Hollow. And the reason is because there's no rules that say you can't. So some people are like saying, I'd like to just be able to come into a fenced in area, have a cup of coffee and let my dog do its thing, that I don't have to worry that it's like run out in traffic or messing with some other. I just want to know like my dog is here. So so Peter, where would dog park go in that table?
Yeah, I think this is all this is really good discussion. I really appreciate hearing all these comments, first of all. I'm taking a lot of notes and was taking a lot of notes during the public comments as well, thinking about how to integrate all of that. I think we didn't contemplate a dog park as being part of that R1 zone, but I think it could be added naturally. I think we could also change what we're calling on the top of that column, typical uses to potential uses. And that table would benefit from having a footnote that's very clear, that says these potential uses would need to be considered in balance with, I mean, I'm not going to maybe make the language now, but I think the table here, and there are other tables that need to be framed more carefully in the plan. And perhaps, and I hear the recommendation as well to potentially move, I think, the recreation amenity, the big recreation amenities table, which I also, when I was hearing all the public comments, I hear the opportunity to frame that more successfully in the context of there will likely be only a few of these that really will make their way into the Tiburon Park system. And this table is our way of understanding the community priorities of the planning process. And make it really clear that we're not recommending all of these uses to be included. Or, as you suggest, it could go in an appendix and we can just do the framing without the table. Just some thoughts.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful in your suggestions, but we're going to have to make a motion somehow on these pieces because, again, we're trying to be very transparent with the public that we're reading through this plan and it will not change without these motions that we're making. So for example, going on through these again, I'm just sticking on this table. I had like the R5, which is the undeveloped open spaces and nature trails, which is kind of the backside right there at the space of land that you were talking about that has the sanitation district has their little drive-through by for the little pump that's right there. To me, adding something that says like native species, all that stuff needs to be explicit there because there's some great individual efforts by homeowners there. They're making sure that there are native species that they're kind of nurturing onto the public space, which is nice to do, but to be even the best is if it was embraced by the town owning it and ensuring that, and also with anything else about education, and because for 6 months out of the year, that's a bird sanctuary. Yes, go, please.
Yeah, question. So I mean, procedurally, and I guess David, this is for you, or Peter, maybe it's for you, and Chair, maybe it's for you as well. Do we need to make a motion on every one of these changes, like the misspelled word on page 25? Do we need to make that, or is there still an opportunity for WRT to hear our feedback and then make those changes for the, obviously, we won't be voting again, I think, on that final plan before it goes to town council. But do we need to make motions on everything, single potential change on this?
I would say for verbiage and misspelled words, no. But if you're going to make a change to a specific slide or move something from the plan to the appendices, yes.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So for example, on R2, actually, this is again a point of contention with them amongst folks, is that Blackie's right now is technically an R3 maybe? Pardon me, an R5, right?
I think it should be mostly R2.
No, it's R2 on this, but right now it's an R5. So it's making a big transition from people, from their mindset, right? It's going from basically the resting place for Blackie, a big metal sculpture, a desire by like lots of people in the middle of the, like little people in the middle of the day that are there when there's nobody else, who want to be and have a camping, like to be in shaded structures, because I've seen people try to do it. And then somebody with a chuck it with their dog, right? That's how that space is used generally right now. I'm happy moving it to R2, but we need to figure out like that. If it's R2, then it's all these potential uses, amphitheaters, event spaces, all their people, like a destination playground, because what I've heard is our community, we want a way to draw people from the neighborhood parks to provide a location that's accessible, that's easy to get to from a car. Michael just left, but it's the playground behind where he lives by south of Knoll. I mean, it's hard to get to. It's a long walk. You have to either park at Del Mar Middle School and walk over, or walk all the way up from the parking lot. I'm okay keeping Blackie's pasture in there, but that's giving a lot of people like, oh, what does that mean? And then amphitheater, then seating for the amphitheater. And for amphitheater,
It still needs to go through post and town council.
Yeah, there's so much, and for amphitheater.
It does, but again, all this in terms of policy regulation, in terms of advising, are we giving them advice to say like, yep, this makes good advice? If it's good advice, if you guys are like, hey, that's good advice. But I'm saying, I don't know if that's good advice, because I know that it has to go through again, but everyone is of the thought of like, oh, well, it could change. It's going to become something different. And different is okay. And I know that people are everyone's change is always tough. I get that. But I think that there's certain pieces in this plan that are will make it difficult for our colleagues on town council if we don't at least address them to make it just a little bit easier to clear the dust. And I think we've done a good job at that. I just don't know. But if you guys are like, no, don't worry about it, I'm like, I'm fine. I agree with you. I agree that none of this will happen unless it gets funded by a decision. None of it. You can't do anything.
I think, Chuck, I think you're right that like what I would say about this is, and I'm looking at slide 84, I keep bouncing around, but it offers too many options, and the range of options are too sweeping, and some of them are too unrealistic. And as I said in my comments, I feel like if we could just focus them on some low-hanging fruit in each of these zones, that would be ideal. And so if it were up to me, I would eliminate the least. I would make this more of a steer. Like, I think this is what you should do in R1. I think this is what you should do in R2, R3, R4. In these particular locations, without giving them the full range of options. And I would put the full range of options in an appendix. But I would want to steer them because I think we've heard enough to steer them on these things and enough to provide some more specific recommendations than just the full suite of options for each zone. That would be my suggestion. It would require us going through those zones and saying, and like agreeing, and I worry that that might take too long and be unrealistic for tonight, but that's how I would do it. And that's why I made my comments as such in the comment section.
Got it. Thank you.
Well, also, this is not a short-term plan. Like some of the things we've mentioned about, let's do the low-hanging fruit. Yes, that's short-term, but we're planning for 10, 15
Yeah, 20 years.
more years down the road. And I think that keeping these things in here does not change what the low-hanging fruit could be.
My personal preference is to keep most of these things in here. One, you want to make sure in the future folks know we had considered these things. Things like an amphitheater, I understand that. I guess in my mind, it was more like what you see in Sonoma Park, where there's like 4 rows of like a small amphitheater and not Red Rocks, where I really want to go. And so I trust me, I opened this up wanting to really go with a scalpel, and every time I'm like, oh, let's move this, let's move that, it feels a little unwieldy. And even something as specific as moving Blackies into an R5, that, I mean, when you look at what we have at Blackies, I mean, yes, there's the field, but that does have the multi-use paths like passing through. There's gardens there. There's a lot more activity that we want to see. I still think that ultimately any of these are going to have to be vetted by everybody and go through a similar process, but at least this report as is, creates guidelines and a foundation for us to make some of those future decisions. So I don't want to prevent anybody from making specific recommendations, but I mean, I'm relatively comfortable about how this one, although I will say I did have the same question about the dog park and where the dog park would fit in on these R1 through 5 uses, because I think there's a lot of interest in that. So I'll stop there.
Peter or Olivia, do you guys know where a dog park would be, or it's ubiquitous? As a dog owner, I love that, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that a off-leash dog play area could fit in the casual R4. I'm not sure about a dog park, a fenced, more structured dog park. Actually, that maybe we didn't assign that to a zone, but I think it's maybe I think it could be appropriate in an R3 because it's a multi-generational activity. It's flexible. It's sort of a flexible use environment. It doesn't involve a lot of structure. I'm sorry, R2, the Blackie's pasture, flexible use zone could be good.
Is R3 the sanitation? I mean, is that R3 section sanitation or
R3 was kind of really intended to be targeted at the sloping parts of that site.
Okay.
Or other sites that have kind of,
Right.
Maybe you can do some creative fitting of a bike track or an adventure slide as part of a playground, that kind of thing. We also use that for the path itself. So I sort of considered making that sort of more of a mobile environment, which could be a different take on it.
I think it's okay to leave it as it is. I mean, I'm fine with leaving it as it is and giving the town council the full range of options. I just don't want to give them an easy out from just sitting on this stuff. I think like the more steer we can give them, or the more clear we can make our steer, the more likely they are to act on it. But if we just give them menus, it's possible they do nothing and they order nothing off the menu.
Commissioners, if I may, the way I envision the process moving forward, now that you have created these subcommittees for all these different areas of this plan, and also come November when this plan is approved, the way that staff has discussed how we're going to move forward is that these subcommittees are going to go out into the community and gather information of what they want. Come March, at our March meeting, it's a regular post meeting. You kind of come up with, the subcommittees come up with a top 5, top 10 list of what, based on priorities and what the community wants. Then when we have our CIP retreat in April, we're still discussing this. Perhaps it will be a kind of a meeting with both post and town council together at that retreat, where you discuss what your findings are and what post is recommending to be included in the CIP for the next year. And at that point, there'll be discussion. It'll be a public meeting. Members of the public will be there. At that point, town council can say, out of your top 5 or your top 10, these 3 are realistic. We can do these, and we're going to do these for the next fiscal year. And depending on what they are, it could be, we want to really concentrate on the Richardson Bay Sanitary District site. At that point, we're not just going to, again, hodgepodge it. We're going to have to go out with an RFP, get a consultant, as Peter mentioned here, a master plan for that area using this approved plan that we have to make it all gel and work. It's going to be a puzzle that makes sense, because we can't build the whole thing. It's got to be, they you know, every piece has to match, you know, has to fit in with other pieces as we build out. So I think having this option where, you know, everything, you know, all the possibilities are there, but going to town council in, you know, as a group with your recommendation of these top 10 or the top 5 based on priorities, and then vetting it out with town council, and then town council can vote on what they would like to see move forward.
I'd like to add, I completely agree with Commissioner Judge. I completely do. And have thought a lot about exactly what you're saying, how, you know, like what can we do to add some teeth? And I think that we could run into some issues if, you know, we get overly prescriptive one way or the other towards what town council, you know, to making sure there's action behind this. And I'd agree, it's kind of incumbent upon us to just move on it and tap into the energy, you know, with all the engagement that has happened, all the feedback and surveys. Like hopefully some of the excuses for not moving projects forward are going to be wiped out for at least some period of time.
I think that's fair and that's reasonable and sounds good. The only thing I would add is just let's please not discount the amount that we've already gone into these communities and heard from them very thoroughly. I hope we don't think of this as like, oh, now we go in. No, we've been in these communities and hearing from them and getting feedback and getting steers from them and detailed ideas for the last year plus. So I just would hope we don't prolong this process more than it needs to be.
No, and I think to make it easy, because to make it much easier for town council, that, you know, throughout the year, post creates their, you know, top list, and we go to council once a year before we create the CIP with your recommendation at the CIP retreat. And at that point, council can choose. And I think, you know, some of the easy low-hanging fruit could be update the playground, or update Cypress Hollow, the playground, or update the playground at south of the Knoll. Something easy that really, you know, if you agree at keeping it in the same footprint, we upgrade some equipment. Those can be done. But if we go to town council every month with an idea, it's just, I don't think it will happen. They, you know, one, we have to budget for it. We have to see if,
I'm not sure.
That's okay. We have to budget for it, and we have to see what, you know, again, what the residents and citizens want. And then we have to go to town council and see what they'll approve. So I think the way you have it and the way Chuck had, you know, moved forward creating Chair Hornbrook with the subcommittees is a perfect idea, and we all reconvene. And I think March is a good time where we get together with your top list that you unanimously approve for an April retreat.
Yeah, I mean, all those are, we're doing the right steps in all these pieces. I just so want us to your point, Liz, is that we don't get stuck and that nothing happens, right? So on this, actually on this piece, there's a couple things that I do want to just add and make changes to. And maybe, and I'm looking for guidance actually from WRT. There's really no area, I'm going back to the dog park thing, is it's not clear to me where a dog park goes anywhere in the materials that we have. You guys can correct me, but I don't think there is. So I think we need to add that. And I'd like to add that tonight. I'd like to just say like R1, R2, whatever. So in that, and while we're on the dog park thing, what would be beneficial on the Cypress Hollow piece is it says add a small designated fenced area for dogs. Actually, if you said add fenced area for playground structure, that would be a better add if you want to just capture that. For Cypress Hollow Park.
Oh, for Cypress. Oh, I see. Yes.
It's I think we've talked about that and it didn't make it into this edit. It's a difference between fencing the kids in versus fencing the dogs in.
Just to cage the kids. It's his campaign slogan, cage the kids.
Do not let them run free. It just was the transformative moment with the Cypress Hollow folks. They were like, can we just put a fence across the playgrounds and then the
That
kids?
makes sense. Yeah, I can see.
So, but is there anywhere for all the other zones in the Blackies pasture whole area for a dog park? There isn't, is there?
Yeah, I think that we are envisioning Blackies pasture itself as being a good place for either an unfenced dog area, because it's large.
It already
is, so that's sort of natural. Or potentially it could be could be a dog park there. South of Knoll, right now, I think it has sort of an informal dog area.
Yes.
And perhaps it could be a fit there in that R4. But I think as a dog park, maybe not.
Right, so do we need to add in your definitions on R4 or R2 or R1? Dog park or fenced in dog area, because
Versus dog play area.
Well, where does that say that?
It doesn't.
Yeah.
But dog park is different than a
Yeah,
dog
a
play
dog
area.
park is different than a dog play area.
I don't know what the difference is, so please put an asterisk and define it.
One is fenced in, one is not, would you say?
Maybe say just fenced
Can I step
versus
out for a second?
unfenced.
Huh?
Can I step out?
You're gonna head
I
out?
just got like 12 calls in a row. Can I step out for a second?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, dude. So would we make that recommendation? I'm asking you, Peter, would it be a place for us to say like, okay, yes, post to approve this, but they would like added in this zone, dog play area. You're nodding your head. So does it?
I mean, yeah, I think this is your meeting. So however you want to make your recommendations, we'll try to do as well as we can to accommodate them.
So I would be, you approve the plan as is with these added
Yeah, right.
recommendations.
So
I think ideally they can be, some of them are going to be specific, like that one. Some of them may be a little bit more characteristic, like here's how we want this plan to be changed. It should emphasize achieving some specific low-hanging fruit and de-emphasize the long lists within the plan. And you don't have to micromanage because there's a lot. I mean, we could get into a lot, but maybe you don't want to try to get into prescribing the specific details of how that happens, but characterologically, what you want is X. And I think that could be a good kind of emotion and give us really good guidance.
Right, but you're not changing the plan from this, right? So you're going to take that plan with our changes in your staff report. And then the town council say like, well, what did Post say?
Yeah.
Well, Post said this, no bathroom at Shoreline Park.
Mhm.
That's explicit, right?
Yes, that might be, that's on the explicit end, and some others might not be quite as.
Yeah, I think that I'm very comfortable with doing that. That's fine. So I guess I'm looking to you all if there's this explicit things that you're like, I want this added for sure, explicitly. So we've talked about the bathroom at Shoreline Park.
Yeah, strike that, please.
Just so wherever it's all references to bathroom in Shoreline Park, don't believe it's necessary.
Are you going to go through a motion
Yeah, we'll go through
process
that.
or?
So I'm writing these down.
Okay.
I'm just getting, I'm getting.
I
hot
think
head
in
notes here.
addition, just this is a broader, like a broader suggestion, which is where there are lists of possible or potential uses, like maybe find a formatting way to show the low hanging fruit, like bolds the low hanging fruit ones, or, you know, whatever. Just try to figure out ways where people could see this long list, this menu, and you could prevent them from reading it the wrong way or reading into things in the sense of like being afraid of the biggest, most expensive thing happening in that area. And where they can see very clear, and where the town council can see very clearly what the easiest thing to do in that area is.
Yeah, I think that sounds really good. Maybe these recommendations as you go can start to become framed as, I move that we recommend that WRT update the plan as follows. And just describe it like you just did and see if you get that agreement. And then I think that's really good feedback and we'll try to execute it.
Well, so I mean, so I put down, we would like to add the shoreline park, no bathrooms, add dog park in what are the R designations. I was gonna say change the ABC to whatever the letters I had. I know it just over those, shoot. Immediate.
Very smart words.
Scheisse.
It was NS and T.
NS and T, thank
Mhm.
you. Oh, there are other things that you like, explicit language, and then I did have list focus on energy, a less focus, have the list focus on easy wins versus
Indicate
exhaustive list.
where there are lists, indicate which are the low hanging fruit or the easiest.
Right, so we
easiest
have
wins.
to make a focus, we have to like write a motion on this.
Okay.
That's why that's the challenge of this, sadly. Anything else?
No, I think you got it.
Where's the A, B, and C portion?
Those are the recommendations. So that's, I mean, on those fronts, and then I would, oh,
Page?
sorry,
Which page?
explicitly, like, it's on page. Oh, yeah, it's near the end. It's like 90 or something. Page 128. I mean, so this is all like to Liz, to your point of like, hey, all these things are the most important things to do, right? So like up on the shoreline park, consider adding structural play feature on public restroom. Yeah, so that doesn't say public restroom. We recommend it. It says, consider adding structural play feature. And I'd even make that up. I mean, I maybe it even gets struck.
Yeah.
So,
Or maybe it says, recognize the community's priority for Shoreline Park to retain its special view character, and any improvements must be within that, you know, must support and enhance that character or something.
Does that have to really go into emotion? Can we just say, sounds great, do that?
For the record, I do like the NST approach.
oh, well, thank you.
Mr. Chair. I do agree. ABC will just be like confusing.
Can't remember it, but it's good.
Just a little sort of sidebar. I think we've tried through this process to, I think, sort of create a hybrid where there is a this park character areas thing, which is allowing flexibility and which was guidance from town council, and also providing more specific guidance around recommendations. We're trying to do that. And I'm hearing now tonight, just a little bit more underlining of the need to not to, or at least one idea to be a little bit more, I don't think you said nudge, but help to guide the thinking towards some recommended specific improvements. But there is that balance that we're trying to strike, because we did get specific guidance to be leave flexibility.
Flexible.
Yeah, I mean, I think the motion would be, and I think Chuck already captured it, but it's basically, it's indicate what's easiest on the list, just so that they know. Can I also add another one to that,
Yeah.
motion, Chuck, which was, I forget the gentleman's name, Bruce, I think it was. Anyway, there were, wherever it said, and I didn't track where this report said if there was limited street parking or no street parking, can we make those edits to say that there is, it says there is minimal street parking or no street parking. Can we make those corrections? So there is street parking.
It's on page like figure 28 would be one example.
So that I would just recommend we correct that, which he pointed out to
I didn't
us.
understand that point.
I think what he was saying, I took it as the report was discouraging people from, it was downplaying the amount of parking and therefore discouraging people from using the open space. Because it was claiming that there was no parking, when in fact there is parking and people can go and park and use the open space there. That's how I interpreted his comment, and I appreciated it. Because we often hear about people who live there near there wanting to make it seem like there isn't any parking so that no one comes.
The way that I'm understanding it is that there is no designated parking for the trailhead. There is
Trailhead.
Street parking.
there is street
So
parking.
can the report just add that correction? Like there is street parking available. That's the parking. Or whatever, you can figure out. I
Yeah,
don't think
but
I need to
We
like
didn't do
specifically
an
edit this.
exhaustive analysis of every trailhead, but it seems like in some cases there's some street parking. In some cases, maybe there's a red curb, maybe it's a tight corner, maybe it's a 20-foot street, and maybe you could pull over and park a car, but it's not really clear that it's parking.
See, the way I'm looking at it is as an outsider, if I want to come visit and I see street parking and I drive here and it's a 15-foot wide road, residential road that dead ends to that trail, and the neighbors on the street have 20 constructions going on and everything's blocked, and I drove 30 minutes from Novato and I'm like, okay, the
Okay,
map
yeah.
says
That
there's,
makes sense. I mean, his thing was a fact change, which was it says no or minimal parking. And what he was saying was factually that's incorrect, the no. So it should at least say minimal street parking and be factually correct, but it shouldn't say no parking. Can we just make that fact correction?
I'm just trying to understand what the conclusion on that was. I mean, there's a spot right in front of my house that
And I'm a little confused because I thought a lot of times, and I don't know, what Mr. King's position is on this stuff, but like a lot of times the argument for not having access up there is because there's not parking. We hear that all the time about people being concerned about like us cleaning up access and entrance. So anyways, I agree. I mean, I think just to be factually correct, minimal would probably be more accurate as opposed to just none.
Yeah, I mean, so Liz, on that point, I mean, it's so like one of the spots is actually up in Hillhaven, and the county asked us that like we could say that this has parking with a big P or not, or other trail access that like further up the street near the open space. And I was like, yeah, probably about big P there would not be a great idea because the neighbors are like, oh, everyone's going to think it's parking spots. There are no parking spots in front of our house. It's like you could park some cars there and it's totally fine. It's both our property and the towns and the counties. It's all great. We don't care. But it's like you could put like 4 cars. So, and it's on the street. There's no white lines.
Maybe we could indicate trailheads with designated parking and other trailheads. And not try to overclaim parking in any of those. There's many and they all have their own unique setting.
I think that's a great solution because what Bruce was concerned about was that it actively said there was no parking when there was some. So this solves the problem. Thank you.
Okay, so I have the Shoreline Park, no bathroom in the Shoreline Park. Adding dog park in the R designations, changing ABC to NST. I'm not gonna break into the Jackson 5. Note designated trailheads with parking and then just trailheads. Indicate what is an easy win on the list of all the different amenities versus just having a big list of amenities. And then the sixth one was adding shore access and water access on the maps. Specifically, I'm looking at one that's right now. It's figure 28. You use figure 28 a couple times. It's on page, where am I? 101. But you use that map in a different place. Like it's got all the, it's the big picture of the peninsula and it just doesn't say where shore access is.
Right, I think, and what I would recommend there is add we have a version of that map in chapter 2 where we're showing the existing open space and trail network, and there I would show existing water access points. And then later, I think it might be figure 28, where we're showing recommendations as well. Then I would also show potential water access points to study.
Okay,
That'd be great.
that'd be great.
And now I have one more addition on this list.
Yes, sir.
If it may be accepted by my fellow commissioners, back on the character map, the park character areas on figure 16. I still think it would be, I do think it would be helpful to add maybe two more zoomed or a number of more zoomed in granular maps, maybe with the actual like satellite imagery overlay, just so we can quickly look at and say, oh, the ponds are in R3.
Yeah, that'd be great.
What table number is that?
That is
Figure.
figure. Yeah, thank you. Page 86.
I can suggest some motions for you if you want.
That'd be great, Peter. Well, I mean, I would make a motion that the post commission accepts this plan with the following changes. That Shoreline Park removes the reference to bathrooms in the plan, or adding a bathroom, to add a dog park in one of our designations to help us with better planning, changing the priority list from ABC to NST, adding a satellite imagery or just better geographic information on figure 16 for page 86, adding shoreline access to both figure 28 and the other figure in chapter 2 for overall in the Tiburon Peninsula. Note on the trail maps where there's trailheads have parking versus just trailheads, and structurally focus the lists on easy wins and other components of those versus an exhaustive list of all the things that we could possibly do.
Second.
Roll call, Chair Holmbrook,
Aye.
Commissioner McInerney,
Yes.
Commissioner Judge,
Yes.
Commissioner Burr.
Yes.
Motion passes.
I forgot to add in the fencing the kids in for Cypress Hollow.
Could add an amendment.
Oh.
Or no.
I adjourned this meeting at 9:05 p.m. or 9:03.
Done. Thank you, Sean.